sure because today in Raid Shadow Legends, it's going to be one of those episodes, guys, one of those long videos. So if you've got the time, sit back, relax, enjoy, crack open your favorite beverage, get comfy, and let's review every single legendary champion in Raid Shadow Legends. And there's been a lot of them added since we've done this about a year ago here, every legendary. So there'll be a lot of new champions to talk about, obviously a lot of buffs as well. So a lot of new content here as we review every single Lego in the game. Where should I start? Should I start with Slyvan Watchers or should I start? I'll start with Bannerlords. We'll go old school here, guys. What I'm going to do as we go through this video too is, as you can see here, I have built almost every legendary in the game. So legendaries that I'm not that familiar with, I do want to give you guys a heads up because obviously beauty is in the eye of the proverbial beholder here. Some of you guys might feel differently about some of these legendaries, and at the end of the day, you know, upgrade champions, invest in champions that you like. This is just me giving my experience, anecdotal as it may, on all of these champions with you guys. So enough disclaimers, all out of the way. Let's go with it here, guys. I'm probably going to just mention too if I would book these champions kind of in a vacuum. It's a difficult question to kind of go over because it really does depend on your account, kind of where you are, but I will just kind of give the overall value of the champion. That way, you know, if you have kind of one of those borderline situations between a couple champions to upgrade, you'll have some feedback there too. Lord Champ 4, I would book. He's an HP-based legendary champion. He's got the decreased defense on his A1, decreased accuracy, decreased attack on a 3-turn cooldown, and then he has that shield and decreased speed. Makes him a really good option for Iron Twins. I think he's an underrated champion. He's not the best out there of legendaries, but he's not the worst either. I do think he's worth booking. Sathalia, I really, really like Sathalia. She's fast. We always look at base stats because base stats, sure, I mean, you're going to be building a lot off of those, but you can't build without a foundation. And those base stats, everything's going to scale based on them, so I always look for a nice healthy base speed. I consider a good speed in this game to be, for legendaries, to be over 105, to be like above average, you know. We have an HP burn on the A1, we have a 2-turn heal here on the A2. I'm going to go through these champions pretty quickly, and then we have Aggress. I will pause at their big skills that really make up the entire, or the biggest value, I should say, in their kit. Aggress is definitely that ability for Sathalia. She has a 100% chance of removing all buffs from all enemies, then decreases the target's turn meter by 10%, fills turn meter of all allies by 10%, 20% turn meter fill if 5 or more buffs were removed. So Aggress is a really good ability. The only problem with a champion like Sathalia, she's amazing in a vacuum, definitely worth booking in a vacuum, but I think that, you know, we still see a lot more Madame Ceres, a Void Epic champion, over her in the arena specifically because she's removing buffs, and then instead of turn meter, she's placing the 2 most important debuffs, or at least arguably two of the most, in decreased defense and decreased attack. So with that said, this is on a 3-turn cooldown, good for PvE, just a really good champion overall. Again, I think she's worth booking. Killian the Lucky, it hasn't gone into effect at the time of this recording, but he just received a really big buff. They're going to change this ability, A2, to an AoE ability. They're also going to add a couple buffs to his A3 ability. They're going to make this stun just a guaranteed stun on a 3-turn cooldown for 2 turns. So overall, after the buff, not right now, after the buff, I think he'll be worth booking out. Really strong to have an AoE block active skills champion on a 3-turn cooldown. Good for the arena. 2-turn stun is awesome too. And the Charmed Life is, you know, reminds me of Third Eye Blind. Anyway, so yeah, I think that Killian's actually going to be good now, which is really crazy to say because I thought he was pretty trash before that. Rhonda, obviously, she's a free champion that we all got this year. I'm a big fan of Rhonda. I think she's worth investing in, but you don't even have to invest in her. Like, you can get by without using books on her, especially if you're relying on her as your arena nuker. She has this really hard-hitting A3 ability, attacking all enemies 2 times. She's immune to turn meter reduction effects when this skill is not on cooldown. That's pretty cool, too. And then she has the In Your Corner, where she has a chance of joining every attack, basically 15%, and has a little shield based buff on her, as well. I think that Rhonda is a tremendous champion. It's definitely cool to get a multi-hit nuker for free for everybody who is playing at that time, right? So Rhonda, Rowdy Ronda Rousey, definitely a good option for you guys. Black Knight, a lot of people hate on Black Knight. I actually think Black Knight is an amazing champion. His A3 makes, you know, not a lot of sense here. Actually, wasn't it based on attack at one point? Did they change that? Either way, not a ton of damage on his A3 ability, but he is unique in the fact that he has a continuous heal and an increased defense big version on a 2-turn cooldown. That lower visor ability is really strong, really dependable, increased defense. I can only think of a couple champions off the top of my head, him and Iron Brago, I would say, that have increased defense that the duration lasts as long as the cooldown. That's really, really valuable, guys. Also has an unkillable. Nice to keep himself, alive as well. He has a really high percentage provoke as well on the A1. I'm a fan of Black Knight. Again, I think he's worth booking, especially this lower visor. I mean, one book goes to the cooldown. Sign me up. Stalis Dragonbane, dude. This guy, man, he hits freaking hard. He is arguably, him and Solus, some people, kind of go back and forth there, but he's arguably the hardest hitting defense-based champion inside the entire game. This Drake Hunter tactics attacks every 2 times. Then we have a 75% stun on a 3-turn cooldown when booked. But this Dragonheart, we have an increased defense. Now, this is what makes his kit so unbelievably, and this is what gives him the edge to me over a champion like Solus, even though Solus is really, really good too, and he's removing buffs, he plays a provoke, so he has his own unique stuff that makes him really good. But we're bringing the increased defense on this dude, not so much to keep him alive, even though that's nice, but really that's going to exponentially add to his damage, and it's going to allow you guys to not have to build an increased defense champion on the same team, because, for defensive-based nukers, you need an increased defense buff, but he's bringing that in his own kit. So it's really, really nice to have on a 3 turns, on a 4-turn cooldown. So really, really a big fan of this champion. Has defense in all battles. I am a Staltis fan. Manaya, really decent base stats. She's really good when she's paired with Coronar, who's her companion champion. Outside of Coronar, she's, I would say, average, personally. 3-turn cooldown with a nice heal on the A2. We have another nice heal on the A3, so a great healer here on a 4-turn cooldown. Also has block buffs and increased defense there. Fills the turn meter of all allies by 20% whenever this champion is killed, and then revives her if Coronar is on the same team. So again, overall, speed in all battles by 19%. Overall, I would say she's a decent healer. There's a lot of books there. No hate on Manaya. She's a really solid champion, really solid support champion, but I probably would not invest all of these books into her personally. But that's just my opinion there. She's not a trash champion, but again, legendary books, skill tomes, so hard to come by. Helier, I don't hate Helier, but I don't love Helier. Talked about this when I had a video with Chosen recently. Solar Blessing, the shield, it's just not that great of a shield. He is a defense-based champion. He doesn't hit that hard either. Multipliers are not that great on this champion. However, he does have a really strong base defense at 1542 and a very unique A3 where he's transferring all debuffs from all allies to an enemy and then attacks that enemy. That's a really kind of cool cleanse. He's converting, it does take accuracy, but he's converting his resistance into additional accuracy when he uses this harsh light ability. It's really cool, but for whatever reason, I think I would just prefer a dependable cleanser on my team, and a lot of cleansers just come with shields anyway, So I just don't think he's that great. Yeah, I guess, overall, he's not trash, but he's not that great. What do people say about him? People really like him there, so, take my opinion with a grain of salt. I think that, he's borderline bookable, in my opinion. A good defense-based champion, but not S tier or anything like that. Lugan the Steadfast, I'm actually much higher on Lugan the Steadfast than I am on Helier. Really cool A2 with an increased defense and ally protect on a 3-turn cooldown. He was buffed pretty substantially, and this bodyguard now on a 3-turn cooldown, just really, really good. Increased defense on himself, if I didn't mention that, and then ally protect on everybody else, which is a really good support ability. And then he has an AoE block active skills, very good for control, very good for neutralizing enemies. I think that he's a really, really good little bumblebee here. He's a little bumblebee, but he's a really good champion. I think he's really solid. Septimus obviously is an absolute beast. He has the hardest hitting enemy max HP ability, albeit on a single target, but the hardest hitting in the game with the Holy Sword. He's great, especially against Force Affinity bosses when you need an enemy max HP who is a Spirit Affinity. He's got that going for him. I would say only Armiger is the only other enemy max HP who's Spirit Affinity in the game. And that's about it, right? Just a lot of damage. A big fan of Septimus, definitely worth booking on that champion. We have Richtof the Bold, man. I used to be really high on Richtof the Bold. He has an AoE on his A1, destroying a little bit of max HP. I guess all right for Scarab King, maybe, but still nothing crazy. He has Bloodletting, which is a really good ability, guys. 3-turn cooldown with a poison on each enemies for 2 turns, but each hit has that poison. So you're placing 3 poisons on all enemies on a 3-turn cooldown with this ability. That's a lot of poison damage. And then he has this Curse Hold, which actually gets extra damage for each poison on the target. With all that said, though, I don't know. I think that champions nowadays need to bring a little bit more. It's not even an AoE attack. If there's just attack all enemies 3 times with each hit instead, I think that would be a really good buff on this champion. He's not a trash champion, but I would say he's just average. So unless you're really hurting for poison, maybe on a poison team for clan boss or a poison team for dragon or something like that, if you got him in the mid game, maybe I think he'd be worth investing in. If you have him in the late game, I might not invest all my books in Richtoth the Bull because he's a little bit one-dimensional. We have Raglan here. Raglan's a tremendous champion, guys. She has this a cleanse here on a 4-turn cooldown. We love to have that on a 3-turn cooldown, but it's still a good ability nonetheless because the heal is proportional to this champion's attack. And let me tell you guys, her base attack is 1156. This heal really does scale quite substantially based on her attack. So it's worth, if you're looking for a lot of healage out of this ability, it's definitely worth putting her in a decent amount of attack where you can get it, right? And attack percentage doesn't scale that badly, that poorly on her as well. So maybe you go with, a little bit of defense, a little bit of HP on your accessories, and maybe you keep an eye out for the attack percentage and go that route as well on the substats. She's known for Miracle, though, which revives an ally on a 2-turn cooldown with a full turn meter. It's the best single target revive in the game. Certainly, yeah, I'm trying to think of anything better than this. On a 2-turn cooldown with a full turn meter, it's the best single target revive in the game, in my opinion. Baron, a really, really good champion. Definitely worth booking him as well as Raglan. Skypiercer is just one of the hardest hitting abilities in the game, whether it's for PvP in the arena or PvE against waves or bosses. Very hard hitting. The nice thing about bosses too for Baron is he's bringing decreased defense on a 3-turn cooldown as well. The debuff is guaranteed, so incredible there. He also has a surplus damage on trample, which could be great for clearing waves, especially of lower HP mobs. Baron definitely, again, worth booking out. We have Taras the Fierce. I do not have Taras the Fierce, but I really want him. I think he's an incredible champion. I would definitely say he's an S tier champion, one of the better ones out there in the game. So congratulations if you have him. He has decreased attack on the A1. He's an AoE stun, double damage to enemies whose attack is equal to or higher than this champion's attack. Very interesting, but it's great because his attack is 705. So you're basically always going to have the double damage there. On the A3, AoE attack, damage increased by 15% for each buff on allies. I mean, and then increase the duration of all allied buffs by 1 turn. Then he's healing himself. He's restoring max HP. It's a really, really good ability here, constant pressure, and it can scale up just incredible with that damage there. And then his 2 passives are very good. Fierce Battler places, when attacked, decrease enemies' attack by 10% up to 50%, 25 against bosses. Occurs once per skill. Attack reduction resets after each round, but keep in mind when we're attacking bosses in this game, that's 1 round. So you can basically take a permanent 25% decrease attack on top of whatever decrease attack debuffs you're bringing already onto a boss. That is incredible stuff there. Plays a fear debuff on enemies from Orc, Ogryn Tribes, Undead Horde, Demonspawn, blah, 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 blah. Can't be resisted at the beginning of each round. Makes him formidable in the arena as well against those factions. And then we have Poise. All incoming damage from skills is reduced by 50%. When attacked, this champion's HP will be decreased by 25% on the initial attack's damage before the damage reduction. So again, he does have some restoration on his A3, so keep that in mind. But man, incoming damage reduced by 50% is pretty insane as well. Very good champion. And then we have Marika the Unbreakable. She's a companion champion to Taras, and she's incredible. One of my favorite champions in the game. These are both based on Ukrainian war heroes history. My bad. Either way, the lore behind them in the game, in Raid, is tremendous. If you guys want to go ahead and check that out, you can just Google it. It's on their Facebook page and stuff like that, Plarium's Raid Shadow Legends. But we have one ally will always join the attack on the United We Triumph. Very cool. If Taras is on the same team, he'll always be the one joining that attack. We have fully restores all allies decrease max HP. Then heals all allies by 40% of this champion's max HP. Then puts a shield on them and a protected strengthen buff. Dude, this ability, Font of Tenacity, is one of the best abilities in the game. You do not see a champion with 22k HP get a 40% AoE heal. That's incredible. You can build her pretty easily up to like 100k HP, and you're getting a 40k HP and then a 20k shield on all allies. That's almost like a complete heal for a lot of champions out there. It's a really good ability. Then we have a full cleanse filling turn meter. Turn meter it goes up an extra 5% for each debuff removed on a 4-turn cooldown, but then grants an extra turn if 5 or more debuffs were removed. Increase their resistance as well. What a champion. Revives all dead allies by 50% and it's 75% turn meter whenever this champion is killed. Plays a block damage buff on all allies for 1 turn whenever an ally receives a bomb, poison, or HP burn debuff. I mean, what can I say about this champion? 110 base speed, speed in all battles by 24%, the best in the game for all battles. She's an incredible, incredible champion. Those are the banner lords here, guys. How we doing on time? Not so good. Or it's good if you guys want to chill with me for 2 hours, you know? We got Eleanor. She's really become the queen of speed farming in Raid Shadow Legends, along with like Theodore the Savant. We'll talk about in a little bit, probably in about an hour or so. We have 2 poisons on all enemies on an AoE attack, but then we have this Combust that deals all damage from all poison debuffs on all enemies instantly. So poison teams are, you know, in vogue right now in terms of the desirable way to build a speed farming team in the end game for dungeons. And Eleanor is definitely a centerpiece of that. Pixneal, it's been kind of a joke in Raid Shadow Legends for a long time. They keep buffing her though. I mean, this is a joke right here. 7 levels of damage books? Dude, come on, man. Come on, bro. Ugh, that's awful. At least the Grip of Winter, we get an increased defense and continuous heal on all allies. This is a decent ability. Decent, right? Attacks all enemies under freeze. Plays a weaken for 2 turns on enemies under freeze debuffs. On the A3, Icicle Barrage. 8 more books or 8 more levels. Attacks all enemies. Has a 100% chance of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn. They've reworked this ability and reworked this ability and reworked this ability. Now it's an AoE flat out with 100% freeze. It's not a bad ability. Not a bad kit overall, I would say. She's immune to freeze. She's filling her turn meter when she gets freeze. She's removing freeze from allies. I'll say this about Pixneal. She's still not the best legendary out there, and it's hard to say you should book her, especially if you have a champion like Ninja or another reliable freeze champion that you already kind of have that covered. But if you're really hurting for a freeze champion, you could do a lot worse here. Now that she has a guarantee, if you have like Yakarl the Scourge, I'd probably just run with Yakarl, you know? But she's a support champion. She's bringing the heal. She's bringing the increased defense. I'll tell you what, guys. She's just not that trashy anymore. She's like an average legendary, maybe even slightly above average if you're looking for some control in some buffs, you know? So they've done a good job actually making her viable. It took them a couple years, but they got there. She's all right. Alexander the Sharpshooter. I'm a fan of Alexander. He was one of those free champions that we got for a while, or a while ago, excuse me, after a simple Esport Pro, Valorant Esport Pro. Dude, I think he's pretty good. He actually does a lot of damage. Born to Win removes all buffs from the target and does a significant amount of damage. Then the AoE decreased defense and weaken against certain factions. Again, for a free champion, he's definitely not that bad. He's a good debuffer who can deal good damage. But, you know, other than that, there's a lot of epics who can basically do the same thing that he can do, so it's hard to say he's a great legendary champion or worth booking unless you really need a debuffer, in which case, you know, go for it, sure. Speaking of freeze champions, we have Shiramani. She's the OG freeze champion because she's always had 100% freeze on a 4-turn cooldown, similar to Pixneal's, but she's filling this champion's turn meter by 10% for each attacked enemy, which is really nice to have. She's also bringing some support in the term of heals here. Heals an ally 50% and other allies by 20% of their max HP, continuous heal buff for 2 turns on targets with full HP. It's a great healing ability. I think that Shiramani is a really good support champion, good control champion. I think she's worth booking. Lauderdale. So I think he's all right. He's all right. Again, I'm kind of repeating the same thing on some of these champions. But if you're looking for an ally attack champion, let's say you don't have any ally attack champions. Lonathuril, his kind of claim to fame is he has an ally attack 4-turn cooldown, which is pretty standard. He's helping to mitigate the damage reduction of ally attack. All allies get a damage reduction off of ally attack and counterattack with the increased crit damage, which is nice. And he's kind of a specialist against, or is it a she? It's a she. Is it? Man, usually it's a he. It's a he. It's a he. I should know this. My bad. Inflicts 20% more damage against targets under shield buffs. So he's kind of a niche ally attack champion that you can run against shield teams. But frankly, I think I'd rather have Farrakhan the Fat. I probably would not invest unless I was dying for an ally attack champion. Is probably the only reason I would put books into this champion. We have Basilius Ronis. They gave him a pretty decent buff too. They buffed his multipliers, and they also gave him 100% stun on a 4-turn cooldown. Now, you know, you're going to learn this by the end of the video. way back in the day, there was nobody with 100% stun in the game. And then they started, buffing champions and adding a bunch of champions with 100% stuns. I think the first guy might have been Astralon, we'll talk about shortly. So now it's not that special anymore. It's a decently hard-hitting ability from a Force Affinity nuker. He's also bringing increased defense, ignoring increased defense, shield, and block damage on a hard-hitting A2 with triple puncture. But for me, he's just not special enough, and it's crazy to say this, but unless I'm progression in this game and I'm struggling to get through waves of Doom Tower or dungeons, I'm really not that enticed by 100% stun anymore. Considering that no boss is susceptible to stun for the most part in the game, in stun in the arena, in the era of Stone Skin, it's not very viable in the arena either. So I would say pass on Basilius Ronus, even though in a vacuum, again, he's not an awful champion. We have Daliana, another free champion with a leech on the A1. She has a decreased resistance on one enemy on the A2 with a debuff spread. Then she's got the AoE, the block buffs. Decent option for early mid-game Hydra. I like the AoE on the A1 as well. The leech is going to help keep your team alive, especially against Hydra. Longer battles, is where I like the value of the leech debuff. So I'm going to say that she is a average champion overall. She's not trash, but she's not that great. You don't see her a lot in the endgame or anything like that, but considering she was free, she helped out a lot of players in the game. I would say if you're hurting for a block buffs champion, you pulled her right now, I would say you could book her out, use her, especially if you need some healage for Hydra. Other than that, I would probably pass. Lysandra is still the queen of speed in this game. She has Energize on a 4-turn cooldown. That's increased speed, turn meter fill by 30%, turn meter reduction by 30% on enemies. She's got the full, flat-out exhaust, fully depleting target's turn meter, just like you would guess from an ability that's called Exhaustion. And we have a speed in all battles by 24% as well. A lot of champions that were like amazing back in the OG days, years and years ago in Raid Shadow Legends, have fallen off a little bit, power creep, because they keep introducing a million really good champions. They have another dozen they're throwing at us every month, it seems like. Lysandra's not one of them. She's still an incredibly good champion, really good at control with a turn meter, speed, and exhaustion really just is the final kind of addition to her kit, or that A3, that makes her incredibly valuable. You can still use her to speed farm in the arena. You can still use her against basically any boss or wave that's susceptible to control meter in the game. I use her against Dark Fae, namely. It's a great option for you guys. You can use her against Fire Knight. I could just go on and on and on. Lysandra's very good, very worth booking. Excuse me. Royal Huntsman. Royal Huntsman has an AoE with decreased defense on a 3-turn cooldown, so it's as long as the attack is critical, so he's Spirit Affinity, you need him to land that crit in order to place that decreased defense, but it is on a 3-turn cooldown, and Dead Aim, ignoring 100% defense, is one of the strongest, hardest hitting single target attacks in the game, especially in the arena. It's absolutely insane. So you can have a lot of fun with this champion if you're looking for a heavy hitter in the arena. If you're looking for a debuffer, I think he is a borderline option to book out. But I think that overall he's a pretty dang good champion. So if you're looking for a debuffer who can really hit hard single target, especially for PvP, I would invest in Royal Huntsman. Certainly can help you in faction wars as well as a debuffer. Yannica. I freaking love Yannica. She's a free nuker through the clan shop. You just get her fragments and eventually you can get your hands on her. She has a chance of going on an AoE attack on the A1 as long as she's under a veil. And check this out, guys. She is putting herself under a veil with the A2 ability. Attacks one enemy, plays a perfect veil on this champion for 3 turns if the attack is critical, and then gets an extra turn. You come into the Elven Judgment, an even harder AoE attack, ignoring shields, and then you can come in with an AoE because you're still going to be under that veil on the A1, and she hits freaking hard. See, one of my top maybe 3 Spirit Affinity nukers in the game. Really a big fan. Tatura Rhymehide, very, very good champion, guys. Decreased accuracy on the A1. Hits very hard for a defense-based champion, so you can get some nice damage out of that AoE on the A3 and the A1 as well. He's bringing block debuffs, he's bringing increased defense, and he's bringing a perfect veil and a shield and some damage. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot this dude is bringing. Also has a reflection built in and a freeze on the attacker as well on the passive. I think that Tatura Rhymehide, a fusion champion, very, very good. Like, definitely worth going for, and I'm sure it helps a lot of you guys out. Ethos. Well, that was kind of weird. He kind of came from the ceiling or something. Ethos is just one of the, I would say, so I want to say he's the best PvE nuker in the game. He's definitely in the conversation. 2 really, really strong AoE attacks. Extinguish Life, especially. The attack is always critical. He's a Void Affinity nuker. 3-time hitter on Outburst with the big version of Weaken. They give him a buff. He used to have the small version of Weaken. Really good multipliers. Really, really strong base attack at 1608 as well. Just one of the best nukers out there. Bellinor, I'm a big, big fan of now, guys. They give him a really big buff, and not a lot of people talked about it. He has an increased crit rate on all allies if the attack is critical on the A1. I think that was only one ally at one point. On the A2, though, this was a single target ability, and now it's an AoE with decreased defense and weaken. Can't be resisted with Xaviers on the same team. Well, not many people are going to be running both these champions. But we also have a perk Veil on this champion for 2 turns. So an AoE decreased defense and weaken, there's only like 4 or so champions in the game that have that ability. Off the top of my head, we have Lydia, we have Dracomorph, we have Venus, Bellinor on a 3-turn cooldown. I might be forgetting somebody, but there's not many. You know, Bellinor is one of them now. And he has Overkill, which does a ton of damage, and the surplus damage on top of that. Very hard hitting ability. Tactical Partner activates the Overkill skill on the A4. Also activates Xavier's Poison Rain when she's on the same team. Just a very, very good damage and debuffer out there in the game now. Arbiter is still the Queen of Speed. She's got the A2, decreasing duration of all debuffs on all enemies, and then, or all buffs, excuse me, on all enemies. And then this is Mentor of Heroes, just one of the things. What are we looking for from our lead champion on our arena team? We're looking for turn meter fill, and we're looking for increased attack. You know, those are the 2 most important things, so they can build them really fast, and that turn meter fill can catch everybody else up to them, and then the increased attack to set up your nukers, right? A great setup champion, and then she's got the really good revive. Really good. I mean, she's known for arena. She has that speed aura, but she's good against Hydra. She's good, again, in any area in PvE as well. Definitely worth booking. Bellinor worth booking, Ethos worth booking, Tatura worth booking. All these champions are really, really good here. Royal Guard, we love you, Royal Guard, but you're not a legendary. Worth booking, though. All right, Sacred Order. Roshkard. Oh, Roshkard. He's a poor man's Helicath, right? He's a poor man's Helicath. He has block damage on a 4-turn cooldown for 2 turns. He also has a block active skills on 1 enemy. Debuffs cannot be resisted. He's worth booking only if you don't have Helicath or if you need 2 block damage champions for some sort of an unkillable comp. Other than that, I would stay away. He's been power crept. Corvus the Corruptor. Really cool looking champion, a really good champion here. He has decreased attack on his A1. You love to see it. 60% chance land rate 2 for 2 turns. Awesome. Attacks all enemies 2 times. First hit, increase the duration of all enemy debuffs. Second hit, increase the duration of all ally buffs. Very good ability. This guy is very, very good against Demon Lord, old school clan boss. On the A3, we attack all enemies 2 times. Each hit has a 75% chance, 100% placing 2 poisons. So we're getting 4 poisons on like the clan boss after attacking. Poison sensitivity on enemies with more than 2 poison debuffs. Fantastic. Defense-based champion. Easy to keep this dude alive. Decreases the damage enemies receive under poison debuffs inflict. Excuse me. Decrease the damage enemies under poison debuffs inflict. 5% less damage per poison. Stacks up to 25%. Again, very good against Demon Lord. Just a really, really cool champion overall. We mentioned him earlier. It's Astralon, dude. Astralon is a boss. I made a video about him somewhat recently, maybe a couple months ago. I slept on this dude, man. I slept on him. I did not fuse him. And let me tell you, he is a beast. First of all, can we just admire the wings for a second? Wow. Good time to just admire the wings. Take a sip. All right, moment of silence over the wings. Done. His swords are pretty cool too. He hits really, 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 really hard. One of my favorite nukers in the game. He has removing all buffs from targets under Veil or perfect Veil buffs, but then places a weaken on all enemies, and then places a stun, guaranteed stun, 100% on a 4-turn cooldown. I mean, come on, dude. Come on. Fills the champion turn at 3% every time an ally is hit, decreasing incoming damage by 25%. The attacker's attack is lower than this champion's, man. And he has a very, very high, good multipliers with a very high base attack as well. I love Astralon. Holstring, I did a video on Holstring. Listen, man, he's not as bad as the reviews or the ratings in game. We never really look too much at ratings, but it can give you a general indicator on what people think of this champion, right? He's not this bad. I thought he was the trashiest champion in the game when I initially pulled him, but I built him, and man, like against Clan Boss, Demon Lord, and against Fire Knight, he's actually a stud. Does a lot of damage. He's bringing Hex, stealing Turn Meter all over the place. Good for Fire Knight. Ignoring defensive targets with Hex on this A2. But the biggest thing, guys, honestly, is he brings increased attack to on himself. He's got a 2-time hitter, a 3-time hitter, a 4-time hitter. So against, if the champion has 2 targets under Hex debuffs during the same turn, plays a Perfect Veil, increased critical damage while attacking under a Perfect Veil by 30%. So again, I mean, against single target bosses, for example, again, Demon Lord, Fire Knight, like, he's really solid. Other than that, he is kind of one-dimensional. He's not like the best champion in the game. I always think of the Smoke Monster from Lost when I look at this dude. Just something about him. Anyway, Errol, not a big fan of Errol, guys. He's a kind of a decently hard-hitting champion who's just really been power crept in the game. They need to buff him, in my opinion. It's a single target attack and a single target attack on the A2 and the A3. He's a pretty simple kit, pretty one-dimensional. Abyss is a really, really good nuker. She's also bringing decreased defense to the table on a 3-turn cooldown. She's a Force Affinity decreased defense champion, and really, off the top of my head, her and Robar are probably the best out there in terms of damage mixed with the debuffs, right? Maybe there's a couple others who we'll talk about a little bit later in the video too. Also, Divine Wrath. This ability just freaking whacks, man. Like, I don't know why, but people don't mention Abyss too much when they talk about the heaviest nukers in the game. Astralon, kind of the same thing, man. Like, they're both elite nukers in the game, especially this Divine Wrath, man. It just hits incredibly hard. Big fan of Abyss. Decent movie, though. Abyss, right? In the 90s? I don't know. Glycia Soul Guide. I was really excited when I pulled her. She has a really good base stats, or at least defense. But she's so one-dimensional. She's kind of like an anti-Warlord or an anti-Yameko in the arena. With this ability, her skills cannot be put on cooldown, anti-Basher, She attacks all enemies with a weaken, steals a buff if they're under freeze, 3-turn cooldown. Block debuff for 2 turns. Also a chance of placing freeze on all enemies for 1 turn on a 4-turn cooldown. 80% chance of placing that freeze. She's not the best, not the worst. I like Shiramani, for example, a little bit better than this champion. So I guess that gives you a good kind of indicator of how I feel about her. She looks freaking so badass, though. I mean, good God. She is really, really cool to look at. Martyr, still one of the better champions in the game. I will say that her base speed is so absurdly low. I would love to see them buff that, even if it just brings it to like 97, 98, would still make a pretty significant difference. Take away her speed, and she's just an insanely good champion. Decreased defense on the A1. She's one of the 3 champions in the game with counterattack as a buff, her, Valkyrie and Skull Crusher. And then she has increased defense as well on that same ability. She also has an AoE Provoke and a decreased attack. She's just bringing so many of the quintessential debuffs that you would want from any champion, and buffs that you would want from any champion. Defense in all battles by 33% as well. She's an old school legacy champion, but she's still really, really good. Definitely worth booking. Cupidus is now, he's one of the best nukers in the game. And he was, before I was still a big fan of him, he was probably an average nuker, but now he hits really hard. He has an AoE on his A1, an AoE on his A2, and a very hard-hitting flame out with increased attack on his A3 ability. If you have Venus, if you're lucky enough to have Venus and you have them together, forget about it, man. It's a recipe for disaster, both in Hydra Clan Boss, in the arena, and really anywhere else. Really good because he's always counterattacking when he's attacked if Venus is on the same team. Wow. Archbishop Pinthroy, you guys know I'm a massive fan of this dude. I would definitely book him. Really strong, specifically against Hydra. You can open up on a 3-turn cooldown with increased attack, block buffs on all enemies for 2 turns. You love increased accuracy, excuse me. Those are great buffs and debuffs to have on the same ability for Hydra. And then he's bringing a great heal, increased defense, and a great shield to the table. Definitely an underrated and very good support champion in the game. Certainly worth booking. Bivald of the Thorn has got a 2-time hitter with Provoke, Leech, and Strengthen on himself all on a 3-turn cooldown. Very good ability. The cool thing is the provoke on his A1, the provoke on his A2, and the leech, they can all be placed even if the attack lands as a weak hit. That's extremely valuable. There's not that many champions that have that ability in the game, and it makes him even more, you know, worth booking, and I think he is worth booking. I'm a big fan. I didn't go for his fusion, but I was lucky enough to pull him after the fact. I was a massive fan. So when AoE attack damage increases by 5% for each debuff on each enemy, also heals all allies with the shield on a 4-turn cooldown with 2 AoE attacks in his kit. Double hitter here on the A2. He can actually deal some significant damage for an HP-based champion against like Hydra too, and that's one of the places that I see him used the most. Decreased damage all allies receive from enemies under provoked by 15%. Very good champion, worth booking. Sir Nick, very good champion, worth booking. 4-turn cooldown, unkillable, continuous heal, 2 turns. And then we have an AoE attack with a hard-hitting AoE attack for HP-based champion, excuse me. And then we have a good shield there as well. 30% of the damage inflicted. He has a much better shield compared to like Healer, who we spoke about earlier, right? So very good champion in the game. Here she is, Venus. She's one of the strongest debuffers, one of the strongest champions in the game. She's got a lot of HP. They buffed her. She has a lot of speed. Very hard-hitting A1 ability with poison as well. She has an AoE decreased defense and weaken. We mentioned that, one of the only champions in the game to have that on a 3-turn cooldown. And then we have an AoE HP burn as well here on a 4-turn cooldown. And then she has Pure Partner, where she can remove all buffs from all enemies if Cupidus is on the same team with a chance of an extra turn. Just an incredible champion. One of my favorite debuffers in the game. Cardiel is one of the best champions in the game as well. Definitely worth booking. He has a heal on the A1. On the A2, he's a cleanse, a block debuffs, a revive on death, and the revive on death buff cannot be removed. This is very reminiscent of Skytouch Shaman's A2, except for it's on a 3-turn cooldown instead of a 4-turn cooldown, and we get the revive on death cannot be removed. Very good ability here. Then we have an ally attack with increased crit damage, increased crit rate. Eat that, Lorenthal, or whatever the heck his name is. And then decrease the cooldown and skill by 1 turn if an enemy is killed from the attack. Very good kit. You can read his passive if you want to as well. Speed all battles by 19%. Again, very good champion, worth booking. Constantine the Dayborn is a very hard-hitting champion. And attacks all enemies 2 times. Will ignore 10% of target's defense for each leech. Decreased defense and blocked active skills that are under. Kind of an unorthodox kind of pairing of debuffs there, but you can know that they'll probably at least be under decreased defense. If you can sneak a leech or a block active skills in the setup for this champion in there, then he's gonna, you know, ignore a lot of defense. That plus Helm Smasher, plus lethal gear or savage gear on this champion, right? Also has a deny revival from Undead Horde, Demonspawn, and Knights Revenant factions, which is really cool. Quietude hits very hard. He received a buff. I would say he's a very compelling nuker in the game. I would book, especially since he's Void Affinity, so no bad affinity matchups to worry about. I would definitely book him if you're looking for a very versatile nuker. It can help you out in PvE and PvP. But it's hard to say that he's so much better if you already have invested in like you, Carl. You know, it's hard to justify, similar with a lot of nukers, hard to justify booking him and spending all the resources and using some of your best savage gear and all that stuff if you already are all set in the nuker department, you know? That's going to be it for Sacred Order. Moving right along to Barbarians. We have Altan. I'm going to be real with you guys, man. He's not a trash champion, but he's an example of a guy who used to be just one of the biggest, you know, most wanted champions when I started playing this game almost 40 years ago, to now he's just okay. He's got a decreased defense on the A1, he's got increased defense on his A2 ability, and then he's reviving a random ally every time he kills an enemy. He has hard-hitting abilities, especially for a defense-based champion, and it's nice to have a decreased attack, a increased defense, and a defense in all battles for clan boss. To me, that's where he shines, but that's really one of the only places that he shines in the game right now. I guess if you're just looking for an increased defense champion, sure, you know, but other than that, I would say that, you know, might want to just book as needed on Altan. I guess you could say that about all these champions. Silver Drake's my girl. You're looking good, Silver Drake. You're looking good. Can we take a look at your skins, please? Yes, why not? The Lavaborn skin, the Azure. Ooh! I mean, I've already seen it, but I'm just reminded how freaking cool it looks. They both look actually so cool. I don't know, what one do you guys like better? I kind of like the Lavaborn, I think. It's so cool looking, but they're actually... Okay, back to our skills. Silver Drake's definitely worth booking. Everybody gets her for free. We have a decreased speed on the A1, which I love, an underrated part of her kit, that decreased speed, 40% chance. Turn meter reduction as well. We get the chance at the stun on 2 hits. Very, very nice to have. And then we have the revival, and we have the heal every turn. Just a really, really good support champion. Good pretty much anywhere in the game. Scylla Drakes is still a beast. Operating Clanfather. He's actually a very, very, very good healer, but he's super one-dimensional. So, like, if you just need heals, you've got it covered here. Rally the Tribe has heals all allies by 10% of this champion's max HP, then heals all allies under continuous heal buffs by 15% instead. It's funny, though. You look at this, and you're like 10% of this champion's max HP, and then you think back to Mariacha or whatever with the 40%, and you're like, yeah, that is crazy, right? We also have, though, a remove all block buffs, heal reduction buffs from all allies, then places 2 continuous heal buffs on all allies for 2 turns. Also has a 100% chance of removing 1 ram debuff from all allies. It's a nice mini cleanse, and it's really nice to have those 2 continuous heals. Again, just a very, very good healer. He's also placing a continuous heal on an ally, or excuse me, each time a continuous heal buff heals an ally, fills that or ally's turn meter by 5%. So again, a good healer, but pretty one-dimensional there. If you're just looking for a really good healer, maybe go ahead and book him. Other than that, nah. Chronum, I don't have. Don't own this champion. He's a champion that you get from friend referrals in this game. He is kind of a ninja-esque A2, not as good, but still decent. 3 times at random, each hit has a 100% chance of instantly activating HP burn debuffs on the target. He's healing him as well. Just a really good skill for really good damage. Then he has an AoE HP burn that he's bringing to the table on a 3-turn cooldown with turn meter fill. Definitely a good champion. I wouldn't say he's S tier, but he's really solid for a damage dealer. Next up is Contra the Cyclone. I love Contra. I would like to see her with some skins as well, man. I love Contra. She's a great candidate for a reflex set, especially against Hydra Clan Boss. She's bringing random debuffs to the table on a 3-turn cooldown. But look at all the debuffs she can land here. Each hit on a 3-time hitter has a chance at landing all of these debuffs. So put her in a reflex set, right? And she's actually a really, really good champion. Reflex is going to reduce have a chance of reducing the cooldown 40% chance by 1 turn on an ability, a random ability, but she only has 1 active ability, so it's going to go right to her A2, and that will help bolster up her A3, or her passive, excuse me. Decrease each enemy's accuracy by 10% for each debuff they are under. Amazing against Hydra. This champion will receive 4% less damage for each debuff on the attacker. Amazing in general. Heals this champion by 1,250 HP every time a debuff expires on an enemy. I mean, she's throwing out 1,000,000 debuffs. She's healing herself constantly. And then has a 100% or 75% chance to place a revoke debuff for 1 turn on enemies under 5 or more debuffs at the start of this champion's turn. This champion can place debuffs on weak hits. We talked about that with, what's-his-face? Really, really good. Bivald of the Thorn. Really, really strong ability. Incredibly good passive. A lot of defense on this champion. I really, really like Contra. Elder Scarred is a candidate for one of the hardest hitters. Not a lot of people know that in the game. With this Hunt the Marked, if you place a 6 hits, attacks the enemy 3 times, place an extra hit for each buff or debuff on the target, can place 3 extra hits. It can be a nasty damage dealing ability on this champion. I think he's a little bit underrated, but at the same time, I don't think he's a must book. Increased defense on this champion for 3 turns, places a fear on all enemies for 1 turn, true fear on enemies under block damage buffs, decreased speed for 2 turns on targets under shield buffs. These debuffs cannot be resisted. Also places a provoke on legendary champions for 1 turn. You can have a lot of fun with this ability, especially in the arena as well. And both books go right to the cooldown, so not too bad. And not too bad in the books here. So Elder Scar is really a 50-50, depending on if you like that kid, if it entices you. I'm kind of on the fence on it personally, but he's not a trash champion. He's kind of cool, very niche, right? Valkyrie, definitely worth booking. One of the best champions in the game. She has counterattack and one of the best shields in the game. One of the highest defenses in the game. Good speed and a very, very good passive for the arena, especially can allow you to cut in front of line on the enemy team because we're filling her turn meter by 10% each time an enemy receives a buff, which is just absolutely crazy. They'll get their turn meters decreased at the same time. Very, very, very good champion. Rorik Wormbane. I hate this champion. It's a chance of stunning everybody. Whatever, dude. If you're fully depleting a target's turn meter. Attacks one enemy, ignoring defense on a not hard-hitting ability. I am not a fan. I would not advise you to book Roric Wormbane. I'm actually a much bigger fan of Raf Matab. He's a really cool champion. He's kind of an unsung hero type champion in the game. Not a lot of people talk about him, but he does have a guaranteed provoke on a 3-turn cooldown, 100% land rate, block damage on himself at the same time, and then he's one of only two champions in the game to have him and what's his freaking name? Beauregard the Elder from the Dwarves are the only champions to have the big version of increased resistance on all allies. So you get that as well. So if you're trying to build a resist team for the arena, trying to do something a little bit fun, a little bit different, Raf Matab is a decent champion to look at. However, I have to be real with you guys. He's really not an S tier champion, not even an A tier champion. He's more like a B or C tier, and he's very, very niche because high resist teams aren't really meta right now. Pretty much anywhere that you would use him, given the rest of his kit. So, cool champion, but it's hard to advise you guys unless you're looking for a really provoker who has a unique set of buffs, I would say. Otherwise, probably don't book him. Turvold, one of the hardest hitting champions in the game. He's my favorite champion for clan boss when I'm just looking for sheer, damage, right? Because this Juggernaut just deals insane amount of damage, more damage for every buff on your team, or on him, excuse me. So really, really good for clan boss. You can put out some insane numbers. We're talking like 300,000 per hit, hits 2 times or more, depending on what kind of gear you have. He's self-buffing himself as well, which can be a little bit annoying because it can kind of mess up on speed tune teams, or it could mess up because it's stripping away essentially with the extra turn one of his debuffs. Just be on the lookout for that. He also brings the strong version of Weaken at a very, very good 75% land rate on his A1. Definitely don't overlook that if you don't already have a Weaken champion on your clan boss team or wherever you're using Turvold. Worth booking if you're looking for a clan boss damage dealer. Ursiga Warcaller, definitely worth booking. One of the strongest champions out there. In Stoneskin, she is everywhere in the arena because of her passive. Actually, decrease the damage all allies receive from critical hits by 30%. This champion received that damage instead. That is a massive, massive damage mitigation for PvP in this game. If there's no ability like this built into a champion's kit like this, and putting her in Stoneskin, she's going to absorb all that damage, and she's not even going to take any damage, So her in Stoneskin, I should say Stoneskin gear has really revived in a way. She's always been used, but really revived a lot of Ursiga Warcaller. She's also bringing Ally Protect and to Strengthen on herself. And then AoE, she can be a debuffer as well. For a defense-based champion, a very, very good kit. One of the better champions out there. Yakarl the Scourge. I love this dude, man. I'm going to have a video coming out on him pretty soon. Good damage, right? He's stealing turn meter, plays an increased speed. His A2 is really good. He got a big buff too. 4-turn cooldown and AoE attack. We get a 75% freeze. The chance increases to 100% against targets with 75% or more turn meter, and it can't be resisted by targets with 75% or more turn meter, which is insane for the arena especially, because he can go in there, as long as he's not built super slow, odds are if you can go first, you're going to either kill everybody or freeze everybody, and it can't be resisted. He's a Void Affinity nuker as well. Also has a pretty cool passive. You guys can read that. But Yakarl, I think he's worth booking. He's a unique enough nuker that I'm actually a fan. Tawana Rock, big fan. I have been since day one. Some of you guys remember. I was talking her up the day she was added to the game. Increased defense, increased speed, debuff spread with block buffs, great for Hydra there. She got decreased speed on the A1, continuous heal on herself, ally with lowest HP, and then this removes 1 random debuff from all allies at the start of this turn, a la Doom Priest, or 2 if they're under continuous heal, which again she does have on her A1. So very, very good cleanser here. Just a really unique and strong support champion in the game. And those are all the legendaries, guys. We are about 25% through this video. Maybe I'll speed up a little bit here as we get to the next. Actually, we don't have to for Ogryn. There's only 8 of them. Biggin, amazing nuker. Amazing nuker, right? Then he's got the AoE stun on a 3-turn cooldown, decreased accuracy as well. And then Molten Slag, decreased turn meter by 25% with decreased speed. All of his abilities can do an AoE, and they all hit really hard. He's a really, really, really good nuker, and he was my first legendary I ever pulled on my account, so I have a very soft spot for Biggin. War Mother, underrated bomber, I will say. She gets a bad rap, man. People hate on her. She's not she's not amazing, but she's not trash. Got an AoE with a bomb. do extra damage against bosses, which is nice against like Bommel as well, right? An AoE attack instantly detonates all bomb debuffs if this champion is under an increased attack buff, which basically she's always going to be, because you always want to set up your bomb champion with an increased attack option, such as Arbiter or Yoshi the Drunkard or somebody like that, right? Increased attack, so important because it's going to increase the damage of those bombs so significantly. I think she's worth booking if you're looking for a bomber or just to have fun with a champion, you know, a bomb champion or a bomb team. Otherwise, it's hard to recommend booking War Mother if it's like between her and a bunch of other champions who have a little bit more utility to the game, right? Ignatius, very good champion. He's known for having not only a good multipliers on 2 AoE attacks, but an HP burn that cannot be resisted on a 4-turn cooldown. Defense-based nuker in debuff layer as well. Great against Frostbiter. He can basically solo or duo with a support, a healer type champion, reviver. He can just take care of everything on his own against a Frostbiter. Definitely worth booking. I'm a big fan of Ignatius. Is slow though at 93 speed. Griptech Mossbeard. If you're looking for a support slash block buffs champion for Hydra Clan Boss, really important to have block buffs or remove all buffs. Look no further than Griptech Mossbeard. He has this increased damage. This synergizes really well, his passive. He's putting poisons on your allies, and they'll do more damage based on how many poisons they have on them. It works really well, and it scales really well with champions like Husk and Royal Guard, enemy max HP champions, okay? So just keep that in mind if you have Griptech. Try to use one of those champions with him. It scales really nicely. And then he has a nice little 2-turn cleanse that he's bringing to the table with a shield on one ally with a heal. Just a really good support champion now. I think it's definitely worth booking. Gerda Bogbrew, I think she's trash, man. I think she's trash. She got an AoE weaken. I don't know, man. Got some poisons, removing a buff, you know, or 2-bit debuffs from allies. Her kit doesn't read that bad, but, you know, on paper she looks all right. But I would not book her. I would not invest in her. I would just keep her vaulted until hopefully they buff her one day. I just don't think the kit to me is almost like a decent epic, you know? I just don't think it's worth carrying her. Shamrock, on the other hand, I'm a big fan of. He's very fast, good base stats. He has a increased defense, right, on everybody on 3-turn cooldown. Increased speed on allies with more than 50% HP. Revive on death with allies with less than 50% HP. Also with a continuous heal. He also has control on his A3, so he's bringing some buffs. He's bringing some control. He has decreased speed. He has decreased turn meter. Fills the turn meter of all allies by 15% if any enemy's turn meter is below 50% flat out, which is nice because it helps even if the boss's turn meter can't be reduced, right? So overall, I think he's a really solid kind of, especially mid-game. You actually see him on a couple end-game teams now too. But yeah, he's a pretty good champion, pretty good. Worth booking, again, if you need some control and some buffs, right? The nice thing about him is I usually don't like these conditional abilities, right? Like if this, then that, if this, then that. However, on Shamrock, it just makes perfect sense. Increase defense on everybody, revive on death, or increase speed, you know, continuous heals. Like, that's all great. So, next up is going to be Drockle the Gaunt. Not a bad champion. His A2 is pretty solid. Increased attack and increased defense. Block damage on all allies with less than 30% HP. Is a good ability for a 3-turn cooldown. And then on this Runestone Blessing, it's a pretty decent ability. 4-turn cooldown, a shield based on 15% of this champion's max HP. It's not a great shield, but it's healing them and counterattacking when the shield is broken. So it's not a bad ability. He's nice and fast too. I don't think he's as bad as some people say he is, but he's not like an S-tier champion either. I would invest in him if you're looking for a champion that has increased defense and increased attack on the same ability on a 3-turn cooldown, which probably isn't a ton of people, but you know, it could be you. Gurgo the Augur. He is a very fun champion to use. He has a guaranteed freeze on everybody with an extra turn on a 4-turn cooldown, which is a really fun way to kind of enter into an arena battle CC. Everybody then come in and try to kill somebody with Avalanche, an extra hit if they have freeze, which they do because you just use Bone Chiller. He has a cool passive too where he's putting freeze on the attacker, has a chance to at least. He's not my favorite Void in the game. He's very fun. He's very cool. I don't think he needs necessarily a big buff or anything like that. But where are you going to be using him, you know? Control in the arena? You have a lot of options for control in the arena. I think I'd rather stun than freeze, because freeze mitigates damage, you know? So, I think he's all right. He's all right. I'd probably book him, but I don't know. He's a champion that I was actually hoping for a little bit more, to be real with you guys, when I pulled him initially. Dracomorph, just one of the best champions out there in the game. He has 4 poisons on a 3-turn cooldown. He has decreased defense. He has weaken. He has surplus damage on his A1. Just a freaking amazing champion, man. And he used to be one of the worst champions in the game, which is an example I always give why you never, why it's always dangerous to convert champions into life tokens, because they could be the crappiest champion in the game, and then player could give him a massive buff like Dracomorph. Roxem. Oh, sorry. I always try to do that. Always try to do that, but I'm never going to do that to you guys again. You don't have to put on the red light. So I'm not a massive fan of Roxem, and I know from previous statements that a lot of you guys are. So I want to be real about my biases. I don't think he's worth it. He doesn't do a ton of damage. He has all these conditional things based on if he's under a veil or prick veil. And the thing about him is listen, I would like this champion a lot. He has decreased defense and weaken on the same ability if it was a 3-turn cooldown, right? He has it on AoE if he's under a veil or perfect veil, right? So that's not the end of the world as far as conditionality goes, but I'd really love that on a 3-turn cooldown. It's on a 5, can be booked down to 4. That's why I would not book him, only for that really one reason, I don't know. You guys tell me why I'm wrong in the comments below, but I'm just not a big fan of Roxem. Just change that one thing about him. Basatha is a Doom Tower champion. We're not going to spend a ton of time on the Doom Tower champions, guys. These are Doom Tower hard, and it takes you years to unlock these dudes. I was kind of underwhelmed with Basatha because by the time that you get him, I'm going to say this once, and I'm not going to repeat it every single Doom Tower champion, but by the time you get this dude, you probably have better options, He has a shield on all allies under these abilities. I would just rather have him have the shield. He has a strength and a continuous heal, and then he has a stun on all enemies on a 4-turn cooldown. Decreased enemies' turn meter by 30%. He has a cool passive that whenever enemies revive, they're stunned, can't be resisted, but, much rather have, like, Lydia's passive, right? And she's a champion that you're going to have by the time that you get Basatha. So, with all that said, I think he's worth booking in a vacuum, but it's hard to say by the time you get him, you're probably not going to need him, Fushan, which is a shame because it's a cool looking champion. I mean, look at how cool he looks. He's really cool. Anyway, Fushan is a really good Force Affinity nuker. He's got speed, really good speed, or in all battles as well. He has decreased defense, albeit on a 4-time at random ability, and a hard-hitting Frightful Claws that is like a harder-hitting version of Syl the Drake's A2 with the same chance of landing that stun 35% on a 3-turn cooldown. Good nuking option. If you're looking for a Force Affinity nuker who brings some debuff, some control to the table, definitely invest in Fushan, and again, that speed aura is fantastic. Razan Scarhide really needs a buff on that speed, man. 91 speed on a 6-turn cooldown with Bogdown really hampers this champion, but the good news is I still think that pretty much everybody should go for this fusion in terms of new players. He's a permanent fusion in the game. He's always available because, sure, Bogdown is a great opening ability for the arena. It's still good against waves, even on a 6-turn cooldown, but most importantly, he's a 3-time hitter with very hard hits for a defense-based champion on the A1, and then he's bringing decreased defense and weaken on a 3-turn cooldown, granted against one enemy, not all enemies, but very good if you don't have a champion that brings both those debuffs against bosses. So still, I would still book and go for Razan Scarhide, even though I do think and wish they would give him a buff. Skullor Vargal can actually solo a bunch of content in the game now. His ability, or his base stats, are just insanely good. He's got turn meter fill on the A1. On a 2-turn cooldown, he's got a strengthen on himself and a provoke on an enemy. It actually makes him one of the more underrated provokers on a 2-turn cooldown out there for Hydra. And then on the A3 is an AoE decrease attack. He's actually not a bad champion at all now in the game. And as I mentioned, he can actually solo some content as well. Next up is Vergamkar, who actually just got a big buff. Not the time of this video recording, but I will tell you what it is. He has increased defense on everybody, a shield on everybody, not just allies who have debuffs removed. On the A3, he has a decreased defense on every enemy on a 3-turn cooldown when booked. So this is a champion, and it's not conditional. Ignore what you see here. So now this is a champion who's easy to keep alive, who can bring increased defense on a 3-turn cooldown and decreased defense on a 3-turn cooldown. Really, really cool. I think he's going to be a really solid champion for a lot of players now. Definitely, I think he's going to be worth, this is speculation because I haven't seen it yet, but I think he's probably going to be worth booking now and investing in after the buff goes live, which is probably by the time most of you are watching this video. Nekmo Thar. Nekmo. Nekmo is one of my favorite champions out of this entire year. He might be my favorite. I think he is S tier, easiest book recommendation of my life. He has an AoE decrease attack on his A1, 75% against targets under debuffs. He's like one of the best Hydra clan boss champions, but good for any dungeon for the most part too. So an AoE decrease attack, dependable rate on his A1. On his A2, another AoE, decreased speed and a leech, 100% chance on a 3-turn cooldown. Okay. And then we have increased speed, 30% turn meter fill, and then an extra turn on a 4-turn cooldown. And then fills his champion's turn meter by 5% each time a debuff on any enemy is removed, transferred, or expires, dude. Oh my god. That kit is so synergistic, so incredibly good. He is one of the best champions in the game, for my money. Chris the Ageless. Obviously, speaking of best champions in the game, he's still one of them. An AoE decreased speed on the A1. AoE increase the duration of all ally buffs with the ally protect on the A2. And then a provoke on all enemies. Increase speed on all allies. Increase defense on this champion. He's also placing decreased defense and decreased attack when he's hit. He also starts each round with a shield. I mean, you name it, this guy does it. He's a boss. He's a beast. He's anybody watching right now who has Chris the Ageless. Congratulations. You have your hands on one of the best champions there ever was or ever will be. All right, we have Ramen 2 Drake's Blood. Very good champion. Also worth booking. He has a 4-time hitter. He's bringing all of these debuffs. He's one of the only champions in the game that has block passive skills. The only champion in the game with block passive skills on an AoE on a 3-turn cooldown. Removing all buffs from all enemies before attacking as well. Great in the arena. Great pretty much anywhere. Very, very good champion. Again, worth booking. Shagor. This guy's a monster. I love this dude. He's got to sleep on the A1. Hey, nice option for Sand Devil's Necropolis, the new dungeon that we received at the end of 2022. We have an AoE with poisons. Second hit decreased defense. So he's a debuffer and he's placing poisons and he has good multipliers. And we have a hard-hitting Heart Stopper, but this is really cool. Instantly attacks enemies with the default skill whenever they receive damage from a poison debuff placed by this champion. When hitting enemies under poisons, heals this champion by 10% of the damage inflicted. He is a one-man wrecking crew with this passive. Constant agony indeed. Very, very good champion. On to Skinwalkers, guys. We have Norog. Norog the Big Pig, man. I like this dude, guys. I like him. Some people love Norog. Some people hate him. I love him. He's got immune to stuns, freeze, and sleep. Decrease the damage all allies received that are under 1 or more buffs by 15%. Allies under no buffs, reducing damage by 25%. I've said this before, but this is a built-in strengthen. Just in a passive that stacks obviously with strengthen, right? That's a lot of damage mitigation there. Do not overlook that thick skin passive. It makes him one of the better tanks out there in the game. He's also bringing block buffs on an AoE attack, decent multipliers as well. Block active skills on the A1. A simple kit, but very effective. Longbeard, hard-hitting ally attack champion. Hits very, very hard. Very good multipliers. He's ignoring shield and block damage on his A1 as well. And then Horde's Fury attacks one enemy with 4 allies, increase the damage inflicted by 20%. One of the best ally attacking champions out there, especially on a blender comp for the arena. Hacker and Smash Lord, I said this recently, so I'll keep it brief, but I think he needs a buff, man. Blood Offering doesn't do that much damage, and on this Rallying Bellow, it really, to me, needs to be a 3-turn cooldown, because there's champions who are epics that are, you know, really on par with this champion, if not better, like Mausoleum Mage. So yeah, I think he needs a buff. I would not book him right now. I would not invest in him, even though it's not that costly to book him now that I'm looking at it. The one thing I will say, though, is some people are fans of this guy. So I just want to kind of, again, let my biases be known that there are a lot of fans. Whenever I talk a little bit of smack about him, I get some of you guys in the comments saying, nah, Hackhorn's actually really solid. For me, I just want a little bit more. I want a buff on that champion. War Chief, one of the most consistent provokers in the game. He has a provoke for 3 turns on a 2-turn cooldown on his A2 ability, and then attacks one enemy 3 times with another provoke on his A1. Very, very good. The best provoker against Magma Dragon for my money. So War Chief, if you're looking for a good provoker against Magma Dragon, there you go. He is one-dimensional, though. All right, Mighty Uko. Another one of my favorite champions out of this year. I'll have a few of them, but really good base stats. Very fast, 109. An AoE on the A1, decrease attack. Removed, attacks all enemies. 100% chance of removing 2 random buffs from the target, block buffs, and decrease accuracy for 2 turns on the target if they have no buffs after the attack. Very good ability here. Very good. And then, great for the arena, right? Great for Hydra, great for pretty much anywhere. And then revives all dead allies with 40% HP, block damage on a 4-turn cooldown, increase speed on all allies, increase speed even if there are no dead allies. Sometimes I turn this ability off against Hydra Clan Boss, and I just go AoE, 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 you guys get the point, right? And then if I need to revive somebody, I go in there manually, turn auto off, and I revive, then we go back to the AoEs, right? He's stealing buffs, just really, really good champion. I love Mighty Uko. Increase ally speed by 20%, definitely worth booking. Brackus the Shifter. There's some Brackus fans out there. He has a 6-time hitter, which is very unique on a 3-turn cooldown. He also has a hard-hitting Hunter's Howl. He also has a self-revival on his passive. The thing I will say, though, is that he's probably like the 2nd, 3rd, maybe 4th best raw damage dealer for Clan Boss. At one point, he was right up there with Turvold, but now they've added a bunch of other champions that are really good damage dealers in their own right as well. But Brackus, if you're looking for some raw damage, maybe on an unkillable team, a 4th affinity raw damage dealer, maybe he would serve you there. I hate that he has a 6-time hitter on his A2 and a 1-time hitter on his A1. Even if this was a 2-time hitter, or 3, like with Giant Slayer, you know, you're really looking like a much more versatile kit. He's a little bit one-dimensional for me. For that reason, I'd probably not book him unless I really needed a Force Affinity raw damage nuker, usually for Clan Boss. Oh man, here he is, the Rat. Dude, I am more and more of a fan of Nishak Verminlord every single day. He's one of the best damage dealers in the game. I said it. I said it. An AoE, decrease attack, a chance of decreasing the detonation countdown of all bombs by 1 turn. Increase the duration of all poison debuffs by 1 turn. On his A3, attacks all enemies. 100% chance of placing 2 bomb debuffs on the target, then grants an extra turn. Bomb debuffs placed by this skill on enemies whose max HP is equal to or higher than 200,000 HP will deal double damage. This guy's one of the best Hydra Clan Boss damage dealers in the whole game, man. He can solo stuff. He can solo Ice Golem. He can solo Dragon. Every time a bomb debuff placed by this champion detonates, places 2 poisons that are protected as well. Man, I think he's absolutely worth booking. One of the best fusions of the year, in my opinion. I know a lot of people are kind of like on the fence on him, but I'm a mass. I think he's so good, so good. Snick Track I do not have, but I want him. I think he's a really cool champion. Very good ally protection, a unique ally protection champion. Has a decreased attack on the A1. On the A2, AoE decreased speed, a shield on all allies by 30% of this champion's max HP for 2 turns. The shield cannot be removed if it is placed when there are any enemies under leech. Okay, pretty cool in the 3-turn cooldown. I actually really like this ability a lot. 100% decreased speed, which is my favorite debuff, one of my favorite debuffs out there. Ally protect on all allies except this champion for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. Reflect damage on all allies for 2 turns, then heals this champion by 50% of his max HP. Whenever an ally under reflect damage buff is attacked, places a leech debuff on the attacker for 1 turn. Reflects 50% of the damage this champion receives back to the attacker. Increase the amount of damage reflected by 20% from reflect damage buffs placed by allies. Really cool kit. What do you guys think of him? Again, I do not have this champion, but I think he's really cool. I really want him, man. He's like one of my more wanted champions, non-void in the game. Snick Track. Cool name, too. I think he's worth booking. Samson the Masher. So Samson doesn't have crazy reviews here. They're very mediocre on the ratings on this champion. But I want, first of all, he looks really cool. Really cool looking gorilla, ape, chimpanzee. I always get him confused. I'm sorry, guys. But he looks cool nonetheless. He has a stun on the A1. He has an AoE, remove increased defense buff before attacking. Place an extra hit if the attack kills an enemy. HP-based nuker here. On the A3, we get an increased accuracy on all allies for 3 turns. Also increase crit damage on this champion for 3 turns. Then grants an extra turn. You guys know me, man. I love grants an extra turn abilities. Starting out with an increased accuracy, increased crit damage on this champion, increased accuracy on everybody for 3 turns, and then going right into the explosive temper is a really strong opening move. From what I hear, his multipliers are not that insane, but he does have the decrease the damage this champion receives by critical hits by 20%, counterattacks the attacker when hit with a critical hit, 50% chance of counterattacking the attacker when hit with a strong, normal, or weak hit, which goes into more stuns off the A1. I think he's a really cool champion. I would like to play it with him. But ally defense all battles too by 30%. But I don't have them. So again, fair warning, I do not have, as you can see, Snick Track or Samson, so I've never played those champions. Cleopatrix. I mentioned a few like really good Spirit Affinity nukers in the game earlier in the video. Well, Cleopatrix is one of them alongside Yannicka. I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple as well. Very hard-hitting champion. She received a big buff. She has increased accuracy on this champion. She has a Hex, and she has an AoE attack. Just a really, really good Spirit Affinity nuker. She also has increased crit rate, increased crit damage on this champion, then attacks all enemies, so another strong AoE on the A2 ability. She's also a login reward champion at some point in the game. So very, very cool. Ragash. Dude, I love this guy. This guy, like, I don't know. I still don't think people recognize how good this champion is. Some people, you guys, my viewers, you're smart, but some people, some other people, my non-viewers, they don't get it. This guy's insanely good. Very good multipliers for a defensive-based champion. He has increased defense on himself. So he's a defensive-based champion like Saltus Dragonbane we talked about in the very beginning of this video, that it brings increased defense to get more damage on his A1. An AoE attack with decreased defense and a stun. This is a 3-turn, 100% stun, 100% decreased defense with a lot of damage. And then, as if all that's not enough, this dude is bringing strengthen and increased speed on everybody. Like, that is a really, really cool A3 for a debuffer control champion. And then has a perfect veil buff for 1 turn on the ally with the highest attack. Really handy there to protect your nuker as well, right? So, yeah, this guy's a beast. Definitely worth booking. Coronar. I like Coronar. I think he's a really cool champion. It's his AoE attack on his A1, decreasing turn meter by 5%. It might not sound like a lot, but he counterattacks when hit by enemies under decreased attack, decreased defense, or decreased speed debuffs. Always counterattacks if Manaya, who is a companion champion with him, is on the same team. Very good champion. Really good turn meter. He's bringing Provoke on his A2. He's bringing decreased attack, decreased defense on targets under decreased attack, granted on a 4-turn cooldown on Battle Waltz. He's a versatile, tanky champion, 27k base HP. I think he's worth booking. Tamisha. Very good champion, worth booking. She has a stun on a 3-turn cooldown on targets with 50% turn meter or more, decreased speed. She has some control here. She has an HP burn for 3 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. Then she has a very hard-hitting Burning Regret that does up to 400% more damage for every HP burn debuff in the battle. Dude, very, very, very good champion. You can read the rest of her kit if you want to, but definitely worth booking. Leorius the Proud. Good old Leo. Thought by some to be the best nuker in the game for Arena, and I can't argue with that. He's in the a collection of like 5 Arena nukers, maybe 3 Arena nukers who are the best of the best, and he ought to be. He's a Void champion after all. Really cool that his A2, when this skill is not on cooldown, he's immune to stun, freeze, sleep, provoke, fear, true fear, petrification. That's amazing. You can't be CC'd. You're going to open up with the awesome Roar ability in the Arena. We have 100% True Fear, and then we have a Weaken debuff before attacking, and it does a ton of damage. And then he has that Skull Crown passive where he's putting the unkillable on himself when he's about to die, preempting that fatal hit. Yeah, man. I mean, this guy is just in a league of his own when we talk about nukers in the game. All right, Orc time. Grohawk the Bloodied. They've given Grohawk a few buffs along the way, guys, but he's still just an all-right champion, really. He has a 2-time hitter with decreased speed. Obviously, we're booking Leo. I didn't mention that. 2-time hitter with decreased speed on the A1. Not a bad A1 ability. An AoE, each critical hit fills its turn meter by 20%. I mean, what is this, a Kale ability? Like, Kale, who else? Like Lifeguard, or Shield Guard rather? Like, that's an uncommon champion for those of you who are not aware. It's not that great of an ability. It doesn't hit that hard either. His Lord of War is a good ability. We have the big version of Weaken. If it's critical, we're stealing all of their turn meter as well. They actually buffed this ability, add the Weaken to it. He's not a trash champion. He just has a very epic-like kit. Like, if he was an epic, I would say, pretty good epic. Pretty decent epic, Average epic, maybe. So I don't think he's really worth booking, unless maybe you pull him in the early game, or the mid game, and you know you're really gonna rely on this Lord of War ability for like Spider or Fire Knight areas like that. You know, otherwise I would pass. Creela Witch Arm is one of my favorite ally attack champions in the game. She's stunning. She's attacking somebody, and then she's doing the ally attack with 3 random allies, not 4, but it is on a 3-turn cooldown. She's also bringing increased attack and increased crit rate on all allies for 3 turns, then attack all enemies on a 4-turn cooldown. Very, 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 very good ally attack option, bringing 2 very important, or at least 1 very important buff to the table, and increased crit rate can help as well. So yeah, very, very good champion. She also has a nice little shield on her A1, definitely worth booking. Tila Gorman is getting a buff. This is being changed to an AoE attack on the A2 ability on a 3-turn cooldown with a continuous heal as well. I actually think she's going to be a viable option now. I think she's going to be a good champion. She has a leech and a heal reduction still on the A3 ability. There's another buff coming to her as well. I can't... increase the duration of all HP burn debuffs on this A3. That's what it is. So you put all that together with the AoE burn for 2 turns, I think she's going to be a viable champion. Will she be S tier? I don't think so. But I think probably worth booking, especially if you need a burner. Very good burning option now with Tila after she receives her buff. Daning Skull Reap. Listen, man, I know a lot of you guys are a fan of this dude. I booked him, I built him, you know, invested in this champion. I'm kind of underwhelmed, man. He's niche, right? If you're attacking a high elf or dark elf, he's a beast. Other than that, he's just all right, right? So you guys can read his whole kit. He's granted an extra turn every time he kills an enemy that's a high elf or dark elf. So in the arena, if you go against a high elf or dark elf heavy team, you can have some real fun with this dude, or against waves with a lot of high elves or dark elves. Other than that, again, he's a little niche, a little one-dimensional, has a pretty decently hard-hitting AoE here as well with the decreased accuracy. So not a trash champion. If you want to have some fun, go ahead and invest in him. He's the type of champion that I would definitely, you know, build out, but not book until you use him a little bit and see if you really like him. Because if I had to do it over again, I probably would not invest in this champion. I hate to say it. Robar. We talked about Robar earlier, and we talked about Abyss as a force affinity debuffer. She's got an attack all enemies, or he's got an attack all enemies with decreased defense on a 3-turn cooldown. And then we have a AoE attack. Damage increases the targets under any of these debuffs. If they're under those debuffs, he can be one of the hardest hitting champions out there in the game. He also got a buff about a year ago where they buffed his speed. I think he used to be like an 89 base speed, very slow, so a lot more viable. You can see the 16-19 attack also very nice to scale his damage. Gomwalk, Skyhide. So I would book Robar. Again, if you're looking for a force-based decreased defense champion who can help you out basically anywhere that you'd need that. So Gomwalk, Skyhide. He's like the ultimate upgrade from like War Maiden, you know? Like War Maiden is, you know, freshman JV, and he is varsity level debuffer. Gomwalk, Skyhide. Oh, Gomwalk. I'm not going to talk too long again about Doom Tower champions. Suffice it to say, we're going to repeat this a lot here. He's just underwhelming for when you get him, basically, right? He has a chance to decrease defense and weaken, but it's on a 4-turn cooldown. You have so much better options by the time that you unlock him. I am not a fan of Gomlock, neither is anybody else. King Jarog, not a fan. His multipliers are too weak on his A3 Goremaker to invest in. I would save your books and not invest in him. Although, in theory, his kit looks really cool, right? Each critical hit has a 50% chance of reducing the cooldown of his supposedly hard-hitting Goremaker. Only problem is Goremaker's not that hard-hitting, you know? So, not interested in King Garog. Nogdar the Headhunter had his moment in the sun this year with Sand Devil. The first day, for those of you who don't know, the first day that Sand Devil's Necropolis came out, it was bugged, and he could clear any stage in like 6 seconds or something like that. I have a video if you guys want to check it out. He's a very fun champion to run in a Frenzy set because he's sacrificing so much HP on all of his abilities, and he's reviving himself as well. But between all this HP sacrifice, you're going to be increasing the turn meter, right? And he's granting extra turns if you kill an enemy with his Brutal Verdict. He's a very fun champion. Very fun. Like, I had so much fun with this dude in a Frenzy set. However, he's super one-dimensional for faction wars damage to me, you know? That's all he's bringing to the table for the most part. And again, his revive is if he's the only one killed, you know, and everybody else is alive. So, very niche champion. I probably wouldn't book him out or suggest you guys book him out, but he is fun to play around with. Iron Brago, definitely worth your books. He's the guy that we talked about when we talked about Black Knight in the very beginning in Bannerlords. Increased defense for 3 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. Also has an AoE provoke and a decrease attack as well for 2 turns if he's under increased defense, which again, he pretty much always is because he has on a 3-turn cooldown. Then he has this very unique passive, increase the defense of all allies by 10% of this champion's defense. That's incredible. I mean, his almost 1,500 base defense, and you can really scale that up, and that's just a lot of extra defense. So incredible for Clan Boss. He also deals really good damage for a defensive base kind of nuker with the control, the decreased attack. I mean, he's just a really, really good champion. Definitely worth booking. Follow the Destroyer. Not a fan. Again, another Doom Tower champion who's pretty underwhelming. An AoE with weaken, decrease attack for enemies who do receive the weaken, so a conditional, then attacks one enemy. I mean, this guy, I don't want to waste your time. I'm just not, Mass Murder seems like it could be really cool. I'm just not a fan of Varl the Destroyer. What is he? Well, yeah, gets pretty poor reviews too. Kind of an underwhelming nuker to me, you know? Enough said. Warlord, yeah, definitely worth booking, man. He's got block buffs. Then he's got a shield. I need a water here, guys. So I'm not even going to edit this video in case you haven't noticed. So we're just going to upload a 2-hour video for you guys to enjoy, and hopefully you enjoy it, right? Block debuffs, then a shield, and then a heal. Very good support ability. This makes him viable anywhere in the game, right? He's known for being an arena champion because of this A3, but this makes him viable anywhere and everywhere. Attacks all enemies. 100% chance to put every target skills on cooldown, and then a 70% chance to fully deplete each target's turn meter. I mean, 60%, my bad. And that's incredible, though. Like, incredible. And, you know, if you're a new player, this can't be blocked by block debuffs or stone skin or anything like that, which makes him even more viable in this meta in the arena. Just one of the best champions in the game, obviously worth your books. Angar, he's got a provoke on his A1, he has a provoke on his A2. I mean, I'm not a big fan of this champion. Doesn't deal a lot of damage. I just think he's not that great, you know? I think he needs a buff, frankly. If you're looking for a dependable provoker similar to War Chief, well, this is a void affinity version of a War Chief in some regard, just not as long of a duration. He does have the counterattack, though, that leads him into placing more provokes on his A1. I don't know. Actually, my bad, his A1 doesn't even have a provoke. It has an extra hit if this enemy has a provoke debuff. You can tell I don't play a lot of Angar. I just don't think he's that compelling of a champion. I would not use my books on him. I think he needs a buff. All right, Rocco Viletide, certainly worth your books. One of the better champions added this year, again, or last year, I should say. Heals out with lowest HP on the A1. We have a cleanse, increase attack, and a shield on a 3-turn cooldown. Very good ability. And then she's a reviver. Revives all dead allies, 50% HP, 50% turn meter, block debuffs for 2 turns, or you can place those block debuffs even if there are no dead allies, similar to Mighty Uko's passive, right? Similar to that revival. At the start of each turn, fills the turn meter of all allies by 10%, just built in on a 2-turn cooldown. At the start of each turn, place a continuous heal buff on the ally lowest HP, will not put it on this champion for 2 turns. Really solid champion, speeding all battles by 19%. All right, moving right along here to the Demonspawn. Prince Kymar. Definitely worth your books, one of the best champions in the game for the arena because of this Abyssal Gaze, removing all buffs, placing a sleep debuff, good for CCing, good for allowing, basically for breaking the momentum of the enemy team and building slower champions to go after him because he's CCing everybody as long as you're not doing damage to them. Then on the A3, it's resetting the cooldowns of all ally skills, fill the turn meter of all allies except this champion by 20%. Insane. It's just really powerful ability. Let every champion do more of what they do best, right? Increase speed in arena battles by 30%. Tyrant Lixlamore, he's really good as well. He has an HP burn for 3 turns on a 3-turn cooldown, a defense-based champion. Nice and tanky, and he needs to be because he's bringing ally protection on a 3-turn cooldown as well, along with increased defense on all allies for 2 turns. Very good support ability. extremely good basically everywhere in the game. He's a very, very good champion. Decreased damage inflicted by enemies under HP burn debuffs by 10%. You guys already mentioned it on champions like the pig, Norog, sorry. Norog, who else? I don't know, we mentioned a bunch of them with this damage mitigation passives, and I love those. Even if they're kind of niche like that one, I still really, really love those. Next up is going to be Countess Lix. She has a weaken on her A1. She has an AoE decreased speed and a triple hitter with turn meter. Good control ability, albeit on a 4-turn cooldown. We love that either on a 3-turn duration for decreased speed or a 3-turn duration on the ability. That being said, she also has another long cooldown, 5-turn cooldown on her A3 with block active skills. Decreases the cooldown of all ally skills except this champion by 1 turn. She has some interesting passives, an Astrolon tandem passive, and fills this champion's turn meter by 5% each time an ally receives a debuff. So her kit looks really good on paper, but because of these longer cooldowns, she's tough to be incredibly reliable at any one area of the game. However, with that said, if you could take use from a block active skills champion, unlike Warlord, that can be blocked with Stone Skin, block debuffs, stuff like that. But decreased speed is nice to have. Turn meter fill. Her kit is solid. This is a really nice addition as well. She doesn't deal a ton of damage for a champion with 2 AoEs, but she just, again, so long on the cooldowns that she's hard to be dependable on longer battles, you know? That being said, I still would book her. I still think she's a really above average champion, but the long cooldowns for me prevent her from being, like an S tier or top tier champion. Hefrak is one of my favorite nukers in the game. I put him alongside Leo as one of the best arena nukers. That might be a little bit of a controversial opinion, but he has an extra turn self-buffing ability. He has his hard-hitting ability, ignoring target's defense, and then this is what makes him really, really good, right? Whenever any ally is killed, it instantly activates that A2, right? So somebody's dead, is not putting the skill on cooldown, right? Somebody dies. I run him like a hegemon, right? A squishier champion on the team. I get the use out of hegemon. He goes, and then he dies. I see some people run this dude in the arena with like food, just as bait. So they die. He goes in with the AoE attack. He usually kills everybody. If he doesn't, he still gets to take his turn and still has that ability off cooldown. That's what makes him so incredibly good. Drexthar Blood Twin, very good champion. Definitely worth booking both these champions. Hefrak, Drexthar has the AoE provoke, deals a decent amount of damage for a defense-based champion. Anybody can get this champion as a heal on his A1 as well. Anybody can get this champion just from the Bazaar on Tag Team Arena. You can get his fragments, and I would really advise every player to get Drexthar Blood Twin. Very good, and you can solo a lot of Doom Tower bosses as well. Kandrafon was a champion who was one of the worst in the game. Now he's one of the better champions in the game. He is arguably the best second nuker inside all of Raid Shadow Legends for the arena, primarily because he's protecting himself with veils and perfect veils, and he's doing a ton of more damage while receiving less damage. So he's really good at keeping himself protected and alive on a team that's not going first in the arena, and this Butcher's Glee ability hits very, very, very hard. So Candyman, one of the best champions out there for nukers. Sissia Flametongue, one of the best champions out there for nukers and PvE content. She's placing an HP burn, extra turn of HP burns placed on all enemies. She's actually bringing decreased defense and weaken as well with instant activation of HP burns on the target and decreases the duration of those HP burns as well. This can just do incredible damage, especially against the Spider, against Hydra Clan Boss. She's a really, really good champion, one of the best DPS champions in the game. Definitely worth booking. Vassal of the Seal, not worth booking. Another Doom Tower underwhelming champion. There's a lot of them. He has an AoE True Fear and a decreased attack. Whatever. Not an amazing ability. Not an awful ability. He has a decent heal. I will say that this heal is a pretty good ability with an extra turn too. I will say that in a vacuum, if he wasn't a champion that took 1.5 years to unlock, he would be a pretty decent champion. But because he does take 1.5 years to unlock, he's not that anything to write home about. Wither the Crowned is something to write home about. An AoE on the A1. First of all, base speed, 108, a lot of HP as well. AoE on the A1 with a leech and a continuous heal on a random ally. We have an increased defense, increase the duration of continuous heals, and then instantly activates continuous heals on a 3-turn cooldown. Come on, man. Very good healer, one of the best in the game, because she's got a cleanse and then heals all allies by 30% of this champion's max HP. Dude, come on. Places a continuous heal on the ally with the lowest HP at the start of each turn, and she's impaled by this dagger, right? There you go. There you go. She looks really cool. You know what, guys? Wither is an insanely good champion. Because of her base HP and because you want to scale her HP as much as you possibly can to get more out of that heal, that 30% of this champion's max HP, again, I mean, we talked about it again in the beginning, but that's a really high number. That's a really strong heal. And think about it, when you pick up all those healing masteries on top of that, fantastic stuff, guys. Definitely worth booking. A very strong support champion. Very good in a bolster set for the arena because we're maximizing our HP anyway, right? Mortu Macabre is one of the most used champions inside Platinum Tier Arena in the game in Stone Skin, and you just wait for the Peril ability to be unlocked. It is a secret skill that has a 20% chance of being unlocked every turn. He's an HP-based champion. You can put him in Stone Skin and just wait out the opponent, and eventually this Peril ability will kill everybody. He also brings in AoE block buffs. Not a bad ability for like Hydra Clan boss. Only problem is it is on a 4-turn cooldown. So Mortu Macabre, and he does have speed in all battles by 24%, which again is tied by like 8 other champions for the best in the game, maybe more than that. So overall, like a pretty one-dimensional-ish champion, but very good right now inside the arena meta specifically. Lord Shazar, one of the better bomb placers in the game. He has a self-buffing ability. So we talked about you need to increase attack champion with bombs. We talked about that with like War Mother and other champions along the way. He has the increased attack that he's bringing on himself with the extra turn and block debuffs. And then he has an AoE bomb, decent damage. They buff the damage as well and decrease the detonation countdown by 1 turn if the attack is critical. That gives him an AoE bomb with 1 turn, which is very special for bomb layers in this game. Makes him one of, again, the better arena bomb champions, not to mention he has the best arena speed aura in the game at 32%. Very good champion. Duchess, one of the best revivers in the game, guys. An AoE revive with a veil on all allies except this champion. Continuous heal on all allies for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown. Insanely good. She has one of the best damage mitigation passives. Again, we talked about with Norog and everybody else. Decrease the damage all allies take from AoE attacks by 25% in the arena. That's insane. 15% against bosses. Just, again, a built-in strengthen, guys, on AoE attacks. We have a block debuffs, an increased attack buff on all allies, a great setup move for the arena, and a perfect veil. Perfect veil also, new players might not recognize, perfect veil has a 15% damage mitigation from AoE attacks built into it as well. So very, very strong. Has a shield on the A1, speed in all battles by 19%. One of the best champions in the game, easily worth your books. Helikoth, easily worth your books. Fantastic champion, has the big version of Weaken on his A1, defense-based champion. He has a pretty solid shield based on his defense, similar to Valkyrie's, although his defense does not scale as well. On the A3, this is what makes him so freaking good. Block damage for 2 turns. Whenever that is removed, stolen, or expires, places an increased defense to replace it. Makes him way better than a champion like Roshkar the Tower, not to mention the Weaken, not to mention the A2 ability. And then he is counterattacking with a default skill whenever an ally is hit while under a block damage buff. Can occur once per enemy turn. So that's a great passive as well. It can really stack up the damage there, especially against like clan boss, really against anywhere, right? Helikoth is definitely one of the better champions. I think he's an S-tier champion. Best fusion that we've had in a long, long time. Well, we had actually a few good fusions, haven't we? Mighty Uko, Helikoth, and the Ratman. I mean, those are some really strong fusions in 2022. Krutraxa, very hard-hitting arena nuker. She's really cool because unlike a champion like Errol, who we kind of crapped on a little bit earlier in this video, she's bringing in extra turn ability. So Curse of Writhing hits very, very hard, and then she gets an extra turn, and she can come in with a 4-time hitter with ignoring defense on the A1. She's not the most meta that she's ever been in the game, but you can definitely get by with her as like your main arena nuker because she can go back-to-back, taking out 2 opponents in a row. Good against like Rhodos with a quadruple hitter on the A1 as well. Good for ally attack teams even outside of the arena because of all that damage she's bringing with the A1 ability. Good for Fire Knight for that reason as well. I think she's a really cool champion. She looks really cool as well. And Ithwi Blood Twin. Not a massive fan of an Ithwi Blood Twin. They did increase his multipliers on this Tormenting Whisper, the AoE attack. The cool thing about him, though, is enemies killed by this champion cannot be revived flat out. right? So he has permanent block revival. He has a pretty hard-hitting no mercy ability, but it's just not hard-hitting enough, though. I would prefer a champion like Foley still to a Nithli Blood Twin, and I hate to say that because he ought to be really good. He has a deceptively high attack for his weak multiplier, 1729. That's not right, Plarium. It's not right. All right, those are Demonspawn. Let's move it. So I would not... Kertraxa, again, if you could... You almost don't need to book her, you know? I mean, you could if you just want to wail out and do it, if you really like her, but you're not booking any cooldowns, just a little bit of extra damage on the A2 and a little bit extra damage on the A1. You can definitely get by without booking her, you know? And in Nithli, I probably would not book. Undead Horde. Crypt King Grawl. Very cool champion, guys. He's got an AoE HP burn, and then he has an AoE freeze as well, right? So pretty cool. It's just placing that freeze for 1 turn and HP burn for 3 turns on targets already under HP burn. HP burn debuff cannot be resisted. Very, very cool champion. I'm a big fan of him. You see him again, mostly used in Spider's Den. But yeah, I think he's a cool champ. I like him. Next up, we have Rotos, the Lost Groom. Definitely one of the best single target nukers in the entire game for the arena specifically. He's just built different, man. He's built different. He's next level. He's ignoring unkillable block damage. You cannot be revived if he's gained maximum HP from the A2, which really boosts up everything else because he's adding HP and his damage scales based on HP as well as attack. So this A2 is boosting, not only dealing a lot of damage, but boosting his damage on his other abilities. So the longer the fight goes on, the harder this dude is hitting, and then you get the bonus of block and revival. Extra turn if you kill an enemy. You can get an extra turn chance on the A1. Very, very, very good champion, even after his nerf. Saito. So definitely worth booking on Rotos. Saito, man, I have this dude fully ascended, and I have him +3. And I'm just... It's weird, man. It's weird to hate on this guy. First of all, I think he looks really, really cool. He was added right before Shadowkin faction. Everybody thought he was going to be Shadowkin, but he's undead. Got a decreased defense on his A1. He has a... Is this a... Yeah, he has a hard-hitting Enduring Warrior on 3-turn cooldown as A2, and then attacks 1 enemy, attacks all enemies except the initial target of the 3 or more enemies alive, which can make him pretty versatile for waves. I hate that it's on a 4-turn cooldown. Vendetta is a very cool passive that gives him more damage. I just wish this was always on an AoE, on Army Breaker, and honestly, I kind of wish it was just a 3-turn cooldown. I think Saito needs a buff. He's not a bad champion. Don't get me wrong here. I'm not even saying he's worthless to book. He's a really fun damage dealer. And again, the Vendetta is really, really good. Stacks up to 30% extra damage, or ignoring extra defense, excuse me. But I don't know. It's just, his kit does not work for me for whatever reason. I think there's more compelling nukers out there. Hate to hate on a champion that I think is like pretty cool conceptually, but I probably wouldn't book him, guys. Elegaius, I would not book him either. Put 1 target skills on cooldown. He has a decent AoE here on the A3, albeit on a 4-turn cooldown. It's okay for the arena, but it's tough to justify taking up an arena spot with this champion. The ability, Ghost Rage, just isn't strong enough for me to justify building this champion out. He's an HP-based champion, doesn't deal much damage at all. So, yeah, I would pass on him. Morrigan. I do not have Morrigan. Want to be up front there. I did not go for the fusion on her, but she's not a bad champion. She has a decreased speed on her A1, good 70% chance of landing. Love to see that. We have a chance of stealing buffs from a target enemy. Also, we place a true fear or decrease accuracy of the target to boss, which is nice because bosses are not susceptible to a true fear. So you have 100% true fear, stealing all buffs from a target enemy. Not bad, right? Then we have a chance of decreasing the turn meter of all enemies by 20%, fills the turn meter of all allies by 20%, and increased speed. It's a miniature version of the energize ability on the A3 of Lysandra. So if you don't have Lysandra, she's a really decent option. I do like Lysandra's A2 quite a bit more, just 100% turn meter reduction. But again, I'm comparing her to one of the best champions out there in the game. Speed in all battles is a good aura as well. At the start of each turn, plays a heal reduction debuff on 2 turns on the enemy with the lowest HP. Debuff cannot be removed, transferred, spread, or have its duration increased or decreased by enemies or allies. So a very cool champion. Nice base speed of 112 too, but I just didn't feel like I needed her on my account, which is the reason I didn't go for that fusion. But If you don't have Lysandra, I think she's probably worth booking. What do you guys, let me know if you have this champion, what you think of her. Skartorsis, AoE attack on the A1, increase attack and crit rate on the A2, and then we have a cleanse and a heal based on how many buffs were removed, or debuffs removed from the allies on a 4-turn cooldown. Skartorsis is a pretty good champion. The speed in dungeons, very, very good. Aura there as well for dungeons, that is. And then the AoE with stealing buffs on the A1 is nice for Hydra. I would not call Skartorsis an S-tier champion for Hydra, but I'd say he's a serviceable champion. Good for Spider's Den, as you guys can see there as well. I wouldn't say he's that good for the arena. We also have Turn Meter Fill here as well on the A3 ability. Would love to see this on a 3-turn cooldown if we're going to buff this champion, but I would say, again, if you're looking for, if this is a real on the fence one for me. If this sort of kit would benefit you and where you're at in the game, I think he's probably worth booking. He's not a trash champion, but he's not a standout either. So it's really up to, this one's definitely a beauty in the eye of the beholder champion. Bad Alcazar, I'm on the fence. Bad Alcazar, book him. Great in reflex, great in relentless, extra damage on targets under poison, great for any dungeon or any boss that's susceptible to poison, clan boss, dragon, etc. Fantastic, but really just good everywhere because we have the full cleanse, good for Sand Devil. We have the continuous heals, we've got poisons on all enemies on a 3-turn cooldown. This is a fantastic champion, one of the better ones out there in the game. Blood Gorged, we have attacks all enemies, puts one of each target skills on cooldown. Raging Beast hits really hard. So a really nice arena move. And then Decapitate, will ignore all defense with a block revival. This is up there as one of the best single target abilities out there in the game for the arena. Just really hard hitting, right? That being said, quite a niche champion to the arena. Don't see really a lot of use out of this champion anywhere else. Does have a decreased defense on the A1. I forgot about that, so I guess nice in the early and mid game as well. But I would say if you're looking for a beast arena nuker, go ahead and book him out. You will not be disappointed. Other than that, kind of niche. Ultimate Death Knight, there he is. Another free champion that we all got this last year. I keep saying this year. I have to be honest with you guys. This guy's a stud. Very, very good. High Provokance, legendary champions, good for the arena. Really good for anywhere we need to provoke. AoE, decrease attack. He's got the shield. He's got the continuous heal on all allies. 3-turn cooldown. But this Too Awesome to Die and this Didn't Need Him passives really take this champion to the next level. Really bring him up to an S-tier type champion. Definitely worth your books. And heck, you don't even necessarily need the books if you're a newer player. You can use him. I use him on my free-to-play account without booking Ultimate Death Knight, right? This ability, Too Awesome to Die, is amazing for the arena. He's soaking up all those single target nukes and taking them himself. And on the Didn't Need Him, it makes him able to solo a bunch of dungeons, especially in regeneration gear in PvE content. So overall, definitely a really, really good champion. Mashald used to be one of the worst champions. Now he's one of the best. Has increased speed, increased crit damage, true fear, and leech on all enemies, and then an extra turn. He also has a lot of damage potential, especially against Hydra with his A1, because he's attacking all enemies under leech, which again, he has on a 3-turn cooldown with the extra turn, ergo bringing that to a 2-turn cooldown essentially. So you're doing a lot of AoE attacks with that A1. On the A3, he's a chance of stealing all buffs from the target before attacking. I actually shut this ability off against Hydra Clan Boss, but it's still a really, really good ability. So overall, just a tremendous, tremendous champion in the game. We have Nethril, another champion who could use a buff on his speed. 94 is very, very low, especially for legendary champions. That being said, he's a very good control champion. An AoE turn meter decreased by 75% on a 4-turn cooldown. That's a really strong decreased turn meter ability. And then a hard-hitting Ghastly Horrors on his A2, where he has a chance of putting stun, decreased speed, and again, decently damage there on the A2 as well. And then he has a 3-chime hitter with poison, makes him one of the best A1 poison damage dealers against Clan Boss and anybody susceptible to poison as well. Nethril is a really good champion. Worth booking. Suzerain Catan. So, Suzerain has an AoE decreased speed on his A1. He has an AoE weaken and then decrease defense for 2 turns if weaken is not placed. I hate this ability, man. I hate this ability. Just make it weaken and decrease defense, or I don't know. It's weird. It's on a 4-turn. It was on a 3-turn cooldown. I'd say cool. Okay, I'll take it. but a 4-turn cooldown, just give us both. Just give us both, you know? He also has an AoE on his A3. So an AoE, and an AoE, triple AoE attacker, kind of like Biggin that we mentioned earlier, kind of like Ray, who we'll talk about in a little bit. We are removing shield block damage and unkillable buffs and then attacking them. The cool thing about this champion is he has a very versatile kit. He's doing a decent amount with his kit, with the debuffs and whatnot. The downside is his damage is not that great. His multipliers are not that great for a champion with 1564 base attack. I can't believe I'm going to say this. He has attack in all battles, a really good aura, but for whatever reason, he's not dependable enough to be a debuffer. I'm going to say I would not book him, man. I know some people will disagree with that. Again, his kit isn't bad on paper, but I just think that this needs to be a 3-turn cooldown, you know? Or a decreased defense. I don't know. Well, how do you guys feel about this dude? But that's kind of how I feel. I thought I was going to really be using this guy after I pulled him a couple years ago. And he's now in the vault, you know? Harvest Jack. I really like Harvest Jack. He has a lot of HP, almost 27k, great in a bolster set in the arena. He has a true fear for 1 turn, an AoE attack, decreased speed, turn meter decrease as well. He has a sleep. If the True Fear is not placed, very annoying ability to deal with in the arena. And then he has an AoE attack on his A2 ability. He's placing a block debuff for 2 turns on targets under fear. Then he's removing increased attack, replacing them with decreased attack, removing continuous heal, replacing them with poisons. Really annoying, really fun. I'm a big fan. I'm a sucker for some Harvest Jack. I actually think that he is worthy of being booked out. I think he's a really fun champion. Sivy the Lost Bride, one of the better support champions in the game, one of the fastest champions in the game, great base stats, great revival, full turn meter. She has a Whirlwind Romance. We have turn meter fill, increased speed, increased defense, block debuffs, a heal, and an unresistible sleep on the A1, depending on target's turn meter. She's got a heal, 10% of their max HP at the start of their turn, and then she has a chance of removing freeze and fear, great against Tormund, always going to happen against Rhodos. She's just a tremendous champion, guys. I'm like knocking over the lights in here, my bad. She's a really, really good champion. Necrot the Great, speaking of really good champions, auto book on Sivy the Bride, by the way. Auto book on Necrot the Great. He's an ally attack champion, but he's really, really just one of the best support champions in the game. He starts off each round by putting a block debuff, ally protect, and strengthen on the ally with the lowest HP. And then he has a shield. He has a heal on them as well when they're attacked under his ally protection. He's got an A3 ability on a 3-turn cooldown with block debuffs, strengthen, ally protect that can't be removed, and ally attack. This guy's just a monster. He's a triple hitter on his A1 as well. Euros Soul Cage. He's a really fun champion, man. A lot of HP on him as well. He is it's a shocker, I know. He's a decent/good Doom Tower hard champion. This is how they should all be, right? He's known for being able he has a good kit, Strengthen, Ally Protect, right? He has an AoE over here. You can read it if you want to. But really, is this passive? When he's attacked, he has a 50% chance, 75% win, but to placing a poison on the attacker for 2 turns. So, if you keep him alive with a regen set, and he's easy to do so because he's a lot of HP, he can basically solo, I think, like 2 or 3 Doom Tower bosses. So, very good in that regard. Little Miss Annie is I would say an average Void champion in the game, but she's really freaky looking, right? She has that twitch going on. Really weird. And I will say this. She has a unique, when revived, she attacks the enemy that killed her. Really cool, right? She's very squishy, 793 on the defense. And this play date is sneakily, or maybe not sneakily, one of the hardest hitting abilities in the game. So Playdate can pretty much one-shot anybody. And then Hollow Doll has really great multipliers as well, a triple hitter on the A1. Listen, she's not amazing, but she's really fun, and she's really good on ally attack teams outside of the arena as well, with a triple hitter with good multipliers on that Pretty Nails ability. So I think that I'm not sure if she needs a buff, I would say. She's just not really meta, but she's a pretty cool champion. It'd be cool, and it might make her OP, but if they did give her a buff to make this ignore Stone Skin, this Playdate ability, I think that would vault her into the meta in a similar way that they wanted Alil, who we'll talk about at the end of this video, to be meta, but he just isn't good enough. She has the kit to be good enough if you add the ignore Stone Skin. So that's an option out there, Plarium, if you're watching. Vlad the Nightborn, I think she's probably Probably not worth book. I mean, I don't know. Her books aren't too bad. It's tough. If you want to mess around with a little Miss Annie and have some fun in the arena, book her away. If not, I would probably pass. Vlad the Nightborn. But definitely keep your eyes on her. She's fun to mess around with, though. She really is. Vlad is an okay Void legendary champion. He's not that great, but he's not that bad either. He's an AoE with Leech on a 3-turn cooldown. He has a decreased defense, a block active skills, Perfect Veil on himself as well. Yeah, you know what? Now that I look at the kid again, like, I don't hate Vlad the Nightborn. He's a fun champion to use, pretty fast, decent damage. But the fact is he's supposed to be a Void legendary, man. He needs to be a little bit something else in his kit, right? A little bit something else. And wasn't he a fragment summon too? Kind of an underwhelming fragment summon based on some of the other fragment summons we had in the last couple years. I would say these ratings are like dead on, right? Like a very average champion overall. I really wouldn't say he's a must book by any stretch of the imagination, so probably save your books there. Undead Horde done, Dark Elves, here we go. Ray, we talked about her, guys. An AoE, an AoE, and an AoE. Where you full buff removal on this banish ability with a 70% freeze. Granted on a 6-turn cooldown, but a very powerful ability. She has 50% more damage against targets under debuffs, and then she has decreased defense on her A1. Makes her a really, really good blender comp champion. She can go first based on positioning and debuff, before the other nukers like Skullcrown or whoever else go. She also has speed in all dungeons by 33%. Just a really, really good and old school nuker who still got it. Lanicus the Chosen, another ally attack champion. I like her because she has an ally attack on a 4-turn cooldown. So again, longer cooldown than like Kreela Witch Arm, same as like Longbeard. Only 3 champions. However, fill turn meter by 30% and increase the duration of all ally buffs by 1 turn is a really nice, addition to an ally attack option. She also has increased crit rate and increased attack and a chance of an extra turn, which does screw up her speed tuning, but it's also a really nice, addition to her kit. I'm actually a fan of Lanicus the Chosen. She has continuous heal as well on their A1. I think she's a really cool champion. Foley. Foley. I just put out a video on Foley, guys, like 2 days ago. Check it out, man. Oh, I got him fully ascended, and he just smacks. 4-time hitter, great for Fire Knight. This ability, Seal Fate, is fantastic. You attack one enemy, you attack all enemies, decrease their turn meter, and then attacks the targeted enemy, right? And denies revival. It doesn't have the hardest multipliers in the world, but this passive is so cool too, right? Whenever an enemy places a stun, freeze, sleep, provoke on this champion, instant removes that, heals this champion, and boosts their turn meter by 50%. Makes him so annoying in the arena. I love Foley. Very, very fun champion. Noct the Paralyzer, guys. I do not have Noct or Truath, the next 2 champions we're going to talk about. Again, promise you that I would let you know when I don't have a champion. So Noct, we get a decreased accuracy on the A1. We have an AoE, sleep, and 2 poisons on the A2. Passive effect. Places 2 additional poison debuffs for 2 turns whenever a sleep debuff placed by the skill is removed or disappears after an enemy takes damage. That's a lot of poisons, guys, and the sleep on a 3-turn cooldown. Ally Protect on all allies except this champion. Also a continuous heal on all allies for 2 turns. That's on a 3-turn cooldown. And then heals his champion by 3% of his max HP. And all allies except the champion by 1% of this champion's max HP every time a poison debuff takes on an enemy. Whenever an ally is attacked while under ally protection, has a 40% chance of placing a sleep debuff on the attacker for 1 turn. Dude, I really want this champion. HP in dungeons by 35%. Very good, obviously, for Sand Devil. Good for almost anywhere in the game. Very fun poison synergy on Noct the Paralyzer. Truath. Truath doesn't look like much, but pretty interesting champion here, guys. I don't have him, so take that into consideration. But check this out. We have an AoE, Perfect Veil on all allies, 4-turn cooldown, also a counterattack and a strengthen on himself, okay? We have a heal a target ally by 20% of their max HP, of this champion's max HP, then balances HP of all allies. Really, really strong heal. After balancing, ally protect on the initial target for 2 turns. So really good heal. Decrease the cooldown of that heal, that A3 ability, by 1 turn for every 10% of HP this champion loses. That passive is really cool because this 4-turn cooldown, it's too long of a cooldown. But with that passive taken into consideration, I mean, you can really start pumping out these heals, which is really, really cool. So I think listen, I think if you're looking for a decent healer with perfect veil, damage mitigation, counterattacking, which leads into more heals, I think you could do a lot worse. So I'm going to say like a slightly above average champion. Yeah, that's about right here. If you're looking for a good support healer, I would book and give him a shot. But again, I don't have him, so whatever. Xavier. Still one of the best poison combustors in the game. I prefer Eleanoril, but still, a deadly catalyst attacks all enemies. Enemies killed by this skill cannot be revived. Deals damage from all poison debuffs to the target instantly. Will do half the standard damage when attacks against bosses. But for waves, I mean, look no further, right? She's amazing. She attacks all enemies 2 times with a chance of poison 75% on her A2 on a 3-turn cooldown. She's also a companion champion to Bellinor. Very good and definitely worth booking, one of the fast speed-running champions out there in the game. Marinix, I do not have either. I did not go for this fusion because to me, she's very similar to, I mean, first of all, I mentioned Robar and Abyss as decent, good damage dealers and debuffers. Marinix was the other champion that I was alluding to earlier, and she's good too, right? But she's very similar to Thylesia, who's an epic force affinity debuffer, and I figured I didn't need both of them. She has a Hex and decreased defense, which is nice, and then she has a strong AoE here that will ignore unkillables and shields if they're under Hex. Unkillable on this champion if it kills an enemy without Hex. Unkillable buff for 2 turns if the enemy has Hex, and then resets the cooldown of the A3 ability whenever a champion kills an enemy under Hex. So a lot of Hex synergy here. A good Hex passive too on Thylesia. She's arguably a little bit better than Thylesia, even though Thylesia has an extension on the debuffs. But I mean, I'm comparing a legendary to an epic. For that reason, I don't know. I'm going to defer to you guys on this one. I don't know if I would go for her. I don't know if I would book her out even if I did pull her. But she looks really cool, you know, and I'm sure she does. She's a nice debuffer to have if you're looking for a force affinity debuffer. So again, that one kind of on the fence for, depends on your situation. Vizier, man, I mean, he used to be the god of Raid Shadow Legends, the king. Everybody wanted this champion, and then the meta for Clan Boss changed from poison to unkillable teams. And now he's not used as much anymore. He's known for his A1 abilities. A2, his A3, you know, they're all right. But really, it's all about his A1 here. It attacks one enemy 3 times. Each hit has a 50% chance of increasing the duration of all debuffs by 1 turn. If you're looking for all debuffs on the target, so all the poisons on the clan boss, you know, you can do some amazing things with this A1 and this debuff extension. However, again, he's just fallen out of the meta because no one's using poison teams. There's not a lot in the end game, at least on Nightmare and Ultra Nightmare. Not many players are using poison teams anymore. That being said, if you do want to build a poison team with him, he's definitely worth booking until you get this A1 booked to 50%. These don't really require books here, so it's really kind of a chance game on the A1. Next up is going to be Chromax Moonblood. Trash champion. We have an AoE with a provoke and a decreased accuracy. Not an awful ability, but it's on a 4-turn cooldown. Who cares? A single target with block buffs. Who cares? He is a defense-based champion with a 4-turn provoke that takes you 2 years to get. No thanks. Astrolith, much better, although niche. She has 2 bombs on a single target on a 4-turn cooldown that cannot be resisted. Good for areas like Bommel. She also has an exchange HP levels of the enemy, then attacks with a default skill. Cannot be used on a boss. Gains an extra turn, decreases the cooldown of the skill by 3 turns if this champion's HP drops below 20% when attacked. I don't know. This one doesn't make a ton of sense to me, the Judgment. But again, Heart Rot is a useful ability. If you're looking for in a speed and arena battles, I don't know. It's kind of a weird aura for her. No one really uses her in the arena. I don't know, man. I guess Heart Rot is the only reason that you're going to want to, if you're looking for like a dependable bomb on a 1-turn cooldown for like Bommel, there you go. Go for Astrolith. Other than that, I'm passing and not booking on her. Queen Ava is a serviceable campaign farmer. Granted, you could do better with champions like Fellhound, who's a rare, but she's really solid only in that area, right? In campaign farming, because she's resetting this energy drain ability every time it kills an enemy, so you can keep using it again and again and again and again and again, thus, completing, 6-second campaign runs. So a good campaign farmer, not the best in the game, but for legendary, they gotta be a little bit better than just a good campaign farmer. So I would not use my books on her. She has a deny revival, but it's not a very hard-hitting ability on her A2. Ghostborn. Much cooler champion than Queen Ava. We have an AoE decreased defense on a 4-turn cooldown, but who cares? A 4-turn cooldown? I thought you said that wasn't good, Ash. Well, it can't be resisted. This is the only decreased defense in the game on an AoE that cannot be resisted. So very good for not having to build any accuracy on him. You even see him sometimes used in the arena against these very high resist teams that use like Siphi or Lydia as a lead, because it doesn't matter how much resist they have, it can't be resisted. So not bad. Also has a pretty hard hitting A2 ability with an AoE attack in its own right with heal reduction. His damage is based on speed. I don't really love that, but it is what it is. We also have decreased defense that can be resisted, but it's a 100% chance of placing it on the A1 as well. So definitely a niche, but pretty good debuffer to have. Rule the Huntmaster. I keep saying this about this dude. I probably would not book him right now. Ghostborn, I would book him if you're probably more of an end game champion, or maybe a really early game if you have no, decreased defense champion. So it really depends on your account on Ghostborn. On Rule, I probably wouldn't book him right now, but I will say he does a lot of damage, really good damage dealer, has increased accuracy on a 4-turn cooldown, not too bad. And then this Marked Quarry is actually a really good ability when you talk about synergizing him with other Hex champions in the game. We talked about a lot of them here, right? Decrease the speed of all enemies under Hex debuffs by 5%, and increase the resistance of all those enemies by 10%, okay? Definitely a good ability. Increases the damage enemies under Hex debuffs receive by 10%, decreases the value of the heals by 30%. So again, a very good ability there. Now we have Blind Seer. We have Blind Seer, a reviver, one of the fastest champions in the game at 115 on Hunt. I already told you on Rule I wouldn't book. Blind Seer, man, she's an interesting champion, right? She's very fast. She has turn meter fill on the A1. On the A2, block debuffs and a shield. 30% of this champion's max HP. She doesn't have the highest max HP, so it's a decent shield with block debuffs for 2 turns. It's a really good ability. Her revival is not that great. 5-turn cooldown with a 35% HP and block damage with no turn meter. That's where this champion is underwhelming to me. Is this revive? There's so many better revives out there in the game, but the fact that she's this fast and her A2 is really serviceable as well makes her a champion worth booking if you're looking for a good support reviver and you're lacking revivers, right? Other than that, if you already have a bunch of revivers, there's even epic revivers who are, quite a bit better than this revival ability, like Ursula the Mourner, for example, comes to mind. So, and Tugar is another one that comes to mind. But that being said, I think she's probably still worth booking because this Dark Shroud is a really nice ability. It complements a Reviver's kit really well. She also has one of the best defensive auras, defense in all battles by 34% in the game. So a lot of players could certainly take advantage of that as well. Lydia is one of the best champions in the game. An AoE with decreased defense, weakened strength, and increased speed. What else do I have to say about Lydia, guys? We mentioned her passive when we talked about Basatha as well earlier. 7-turn cooldown, denying revival and reviving your team instead. She's definitely a champion that is justifies being the reward for doing all the faction wars. If you haven't gone after the faction wars, you haven't gone after Lydia, you will not be disappointed should you choose to do so. She's one of the best champions in the game. Visix the Unbowed. You get her after, 270 days, I think, in the game? Is that right? Either way, everybody gets her for free eventually, and she's really good. She used to suck. They gave her a big buff. She's got good defense. She got decreased speed on a 3-turn cooldown, Ally Protect on a 3-turn cooldown, Provoke on a 3-turn cooldown, and a Shield on a 3-turn cooldown. Very, very good champion. Very good support champion. I mentioned this, especially in the early and mid game. I would strongly consider putting her in Lifesteal Gear or Bloodthirst because you really want to keep her alive. She takes a lot of damage. That's what a lot of players don't realize about her. When you have Ally Protection, you're eating up 50% of damage from all allies, and then Provoke on top of that. The shield, by the way, is on only her. Did I say AoE? The shield is on herself, which she needs, right? So maybe even lifesteal will help keep her alive on top of that. You just, or regeneration gear, right? Because she takes a lot of damage, right? But she's very good. She's worth booking. Mithrala Lightbane, for my money, is probably the best champion in the game, certainly in the conversation. She has poisons on her A1, an AoE with Hex, increased defense, and increased attack on a 3-turn cooldown. Then she has a cleanse, the big version of Strengthen, and a shield based on 30% of her max HP on all allies. Then she has this insane passive where she's converting her champion's accuracy to resistance, which can just lead to, 800 resistance or whatever in the arena. Very good. She has Petrification, currently the only champion in the game that has that debuff. Chance of placing it on the attacker whenever her or an ally is attacked. Just an amazing champion. This, for no other reason, should be the reason that everybody should take advantage of Hydra Clan Boss to get your hands on enough fragments to unlock your own Mithrala Lifebane. Ramaria. All right. Listen, some of you guys get kind of mad at me because I talked a little smack about this champion. I was underwhelmed by this champion, okay? She's not trash, but she didn't blow me away, okay? An AoE with decreased speed, also has a chance of fear. On the A2, another AoE with a stun, chance of turn meter on each enemy without a stun on a 4-turn cooldown. Again, these AoE stuns, they just don't blow me away anymore, guys. Like, at one point that was really useful, but now I'm going to have an AoE stun. Like, where am I going to use that? Against waves, I guess, And then we have a cleanse with turn meter fill. It's not a bad ability on 3-turn cooldown at all. And that turn meter fill goes up for every other debuff removed. It goes up for, these bigger debuffs as well, the control debuffs. But I don't know, man. I just don't, for whatever reason, she has speed in all battles by 23%. For whatever reason, I think she's probably like an average to above average Void Legendary. But I would probably book her, especially if you're good. I mean, this is one of the champions that if you need this, if you need an AoE stun, if you need a cleanse and a decreased speed, then yes, book her. She's going to be worth it, But I would just pause for a second, really on any champion, and ask yourself, where am I going to need this, Hydra, sure, a lot of people could benefit for her and Hydra, even though the stun and the turn meter won't work. Decreased speed will, 50% land rate, not a lot of damage. Be very aware, very, very weak multipliers on both of her AoE attacks. So, I mean, listen, not an amazing champion, but not the best. I was a little underwhelmed. Knight's Revenant. Narma, she's really decent, but she's so niche. If, again, Poison was meta for Clan Boss, then she'd be a lot better because she has 3 poisons and poison sensitivity on a 4-turn cooldown. I would also like this to be a 3-turn cooldown. It is a 3-turn duration, which is nice, but I would love it if this was, I think a great buff would be to move this to a 5-turn cooldown, book down to 3. Other than that, she has decreased attack, good for kind of Clan Boss, but again, very niche and not used a ton right now in the game. Gaius the Gleef, I would not book her right now. I would not personally book her unless you really have that need and don't have like Frozen Banshee for poison sensitivity on Clan Boss. Gaius the Gleeful is an incredible bomb layer. He's definitely up there with Lord Chazar in terms of a viable bomber for the arena. He has an AoE bomb with sleep. And then he has a hard-hitting explosive wit that instantly detonates these bombs. And then he has, when attacked, 30% chance of placing a bomb debuff on the attacker that detonates after 2 turns, charges 1 per hit. And then instantly detonates all bomb debuffs on all enemies whenever this champion is killed. He is the bomber right now who is in vogue in the arena. Shemnath, or the Statue of Liberty. Decreased defense on the A1. A transfer debuff from this champion to the enemy, then attacks them 3 times. You can read what all the hits do. It's not a bad ability here on a 3-turn cooldown, but really the big money ability is Humbled and Broken. This is such a good ability in the arena. I think this champion is worth booking. I'm a massive fan. Attacks all enemies 2 times with good multipliers. Hits pretty hard. First hit removes all buffs. Second hit ignores 20% of the target's defense against targets that have no active buffs. So you just remove them, So other than Stone Skin, it's kind of what holds this champion back a little bit because she has the chance of being denied those removals, right, on Stone Skin. So that's kind of the issue on this champion. But I will say, Very fun, very effective, except for against stone skin teams in the arena. Very, very cool champion. We have Orcs here. Orcs is not an awful champion. An AoE attack, a chance at removing a buff on the A1. Another AoE attack, chancing places a stun. Again, man, the AoE stuns. 3-turn cooldown, not bad, 75% chance. Not a bad ability, right? Transfers a random debuff from this champion to the targets that receive the stun from this skill. Also brings Ally Protect and a counter attack on this champion, which leads into more removing buffs from each target on an AoE. So that counter attack on this champion really synergizes well with this A1. I don't think she's a trash champion. I think she's definitely worth booking. Good for Hydra as well. Physical champion is turn meter by 5%. Each time an ally inflicts a critical hit, heals the champion by 5% of their max HP each time an enemy inflicts a critical hit. Kind of a cool passive there as well. Bystofus has a AoE on the A2 with block active skills, heals by 20% of the damage inflicted on a 3-turn cooldown, another AoE with block active skills, and 100% chance of placing a decreased defense for 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown. You guys already know what I'm going to say about this kid. I think that he needs a buff. It is crazy that this champion has the highest attack, or maybe right there close, maybe the Nifty Blood Twin is higher, 1795 base attack on this champion, but really crappy multipliers. It's a borderline shady move to give champions really high attacks and not, especially beginners, don't recognize that that doesn't really have much to do. Has a lot to do with how it scales, like with attack percentage gear, but that does not tell the full story at all. It's all about the multipliers, you know? Thea the Tomb Angel, speaking of multipliers, she has one of the best A2s in terms of raw damage here. For each hex, you can stack up to 50 or 300% extra damage here. It has on paper the potential of being one of the hardest hitting AoE attacks inside the entire game. Perfect Veil with an extra turn. We can reduce the cooldown of Not of This World ability, which is nice on the A1 because it synergizes really well, because Not of This World, sure, it's only a Perfect Veil, but it gives it extra turn, so it reduces the cooldown of the Hex Reaper as well. So overall, she's the first Doom Tower Secret Room hard champion that you get. And if you're looking for just a nuker with some Hex synergy, she's worth booking probably. But if you already have enough nukers, if you're good to go, probably not worth booking. Bystofus, I would say probably not worth booking. Orcs, I would say probably worth your books again if you could, if you could use that kit, could benefit from that kit. Versus the Grim, we have an AoE HP-based champion who actually does a decent amount of damage for HP-based champions, which are traditionally the lowest damage dealers in the game. An AoE, extra hit on enemies with these CC debuffs, and a chance of placing Leech as well on a 3-turn cooldown. A good ability. We also have Ally Protect and increased defense on a 3-turn cooldown. A really good support champion. I think he was a Fragment summon way back in the day. He has a place to provoke as well in the attacker. I think he is, some people like hate on Verself the Grim. I don't know, man. I think he's worth booking if you need, again, like I'm just going to stop saying it again and again, but if you need a good Ally Protector, keep in mind, Ally Protection is the best damage mitigator out there in the game. So if you need a really solid Ally Protector who also brings increased defense, who also has a really good, kit with Leech and some decent damage, look no further than Verself the Grim. I think it's a really cool and kind of an underrated champion. Same thing with Mother Cybele. She was once a fusion in the game. AoE with decreased speed and a turn meter fill on the A1, 50% chance when booked of decreased speed, really good for Hydra. Also has Revive on Death, increased defense, really good for Sand Devil's Necropolis. I sometimes just shut off the A2 ability as well and just go for, just the buffs and a bunch of AoE decreased speeds. Can deal some sneaky damage, and one of the fastest champions in the game at 115 with speed in all battles by 24%. A great aura lead as well. Philly heals the ally with lowest HP whenever this champion is killed. Also heals allies by 20% of their max HP and fills their turn meter by 15% when this champion is revived. Pretty cool there as well, because we do have the Revive on Death, right built in on the kit. I think she's worth booking. Tomb Lord. I can't believe they gave this dude a buff. I think he's worth booking. Really good champion. Decreased speed and a triple hitter on the A1. On the A2, we have a chance of placing 2 poisons. If the attack is critical, we're placing 4 poisons on all enemies for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. Really good poison, obviously damage off this ability, and then a 4-turn cooldown, but we have decreased attack, decreased defense, and grants an extra turn if an enemy's turn meter is decreased by this skill. We have a, where's the turn meter? Decrease the turn meter of all enemies with less than 50% HP by 100%. Very strong ability, albeit on a 4-turn cooldown with the turn meter and the extra turn potential, makes him incredibly viable. Very, very, very good support champion. All right, where are we? Theodore the Savant. Oh man, what a good champion. Has an AoE decrease speed on the A1, 50% chance land rate. We have a 100% chance when booked to placing 2 poison debuffs and a poison sensitivity debuffs on all enemies for 2 turns. Also increase speed on all allies while we're at it. Why not? This guy is a boss. But check it out. On the A3, increase the duration of all poison and HP burn, then instantly activates any poison or HP burn. Places a weaken for enemies not under poison or HP burn on a 3-turn cooldown. Also, the champion's resistance decreased by 5 for each poison debuff on the enemy team. Him, along with Eleanoril, along with, like all these poison champions, along with Tomb Lord, a poison placer, with the instant activation, champions like Dark Kale. I mean, these are the speed runners of Raid Shadow Legends right now. Very good. Speaking of speedrunners, Calvalax, right? This guy has eluded me. I don't have him, but gosh, I know his kit well enough. He's probably my most wanted champion for a long time now. Has speed in all battles. Looks really cool. Let's start with his passive. Places 4 poison debuffs on all enemies for 2 turns at the start of each round. What? 50% chance to place a poison on all enemies for 1 turn at the start of each turn. What? Whenever an enemy places a poison debuff on this champion, instantly removes it, places a continuous heal. Attacks all enemies, damage increases Attacks all enemies, damage increases according to the number of poison debuffs on the target, based on enemy max HP, poison, attack. Really a lot of damage on Storm of Vitriol. And then we have attacks 1 enemy, extra hit for each poison debuff on the target, up to 3 extra hits. Just a poison machine, a poison madman. Definitely worth booking Theodore and Calvalax. Walking Tomb Drang. Interesting fragment summon, or I forgot, or fusion fragment summon. I always get him confused. Either way, he has an HP burn that cannot be resisted on a 3-turn cooldown. He also has an equalized HP of all allies and attacks 1 enemy. It's a really good heal ability. He's ignoring target's defense. If the target's HP is equal to or lower than this champion's current HP, decrease the cooldown of his A2 ability by 1 turn if the target's current HP is higher than this champion's current HP. It's a lot to read there, but I'm actually a fan of Walking Tomb Drag, man. I think he's a very compelling HP burn champion out there, and I think he's worth booking if, again, you could benefit from someone who places an HP burn that cannot be resisted. Really solid champion. Next up, Solus. Solus, we talked about him earlier when we talked about Saltus Dragonbane. He is in contention for the hardest hitting defensive nukers in the game. They gave him a nice speed buff as well. You love to see it. They gave him a defense buff as well. He has a stun on the A1, a 3-time hitter on his Wave of Despair with a provoke, and on the A3, attacks all enemies, increase the duration of debuffs, and then places a provoke on them, places a shield on this champion for 2 turns equal to 30% of the damage inflicted. Damage inflicted increases by 10% for each debuff on the target. All right, buff removal also, as I mentioned, on the A2. Really, really hard-hitting champion. Unlike Salsa's Dragonbane, you do need to have an increased defense champion on the team with Solus. He's probably the champion that we see second most right now in the arena as far as defense-based nukers out there. Hegemon, worth booking Solus, I would say. Hegemon, definitely worth booking. He goes first every single round, so this is why he's so good and so well known in the arena. And then he has a 50-50 shot at placing a block active skills and a decreased attack on all enemies. You know what, now that I read this, not necessary to book this dude, right? Unless you want some extra damage. And the cool thing is you can build a Nukamon and just build them for all-out damage and super slow because he's going to go first anyway. Just try to kill somebody on the first shot. In that case, you would want to book him. Otherwise, I don't think it's mandatory that you book Hegemon. He's just a great champion. Whirlum Frost King. I'm a fan of Whirlum Frost King. I think he's worth booking, guys. He's got a Strengthen and increased defense on a 3-turn cooldown. He's bringing the strong version of Strengthen, strong version of the increased defense, one of the best damage mitigation in one skill out there. They give him a big buff. Now I think he's actually a really viable champion. At first, he was kind of mad when he's introduced with Battle Pass a couple years ago. An AoE with decreased accuracy, decreased crit damage that cannot be resisted. Also brings increased crit damage on all allies. Also, defense in Doom Tower battles by 40%. One of the best Doom Tower defensive auras in the game. Whirlum Frost King definitely worth booking, guys. Fortus! Oh man, Fortus is a very, very, very bad Void legendary, guys. He has a Fear on the A1 and AoE True Fear that cannot be resisted by targets under Fear? He has an AoE on this A3 ability, defense-based nuker here. Ignore 30% target defense against targets with Fear or True Fear. Attack is always critical under Fear or True Fear. Dude, I mean, like, listen. He does have this passive, but it's a 4-turn cooldown, right? Increase the chance of enemy skills failing by 15% when they're under Fear or True Fear. Prevents this champion. Let me just put it this way. Has an 80% chance of planting Fear debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. Finally, plays a sleep debuff on this champion for 1 turn, and it cannot be resisted or blocked. Meh. I don't know. I am not a fan of this kit at all. I think he needs a buff, although I will say his helmet is pretty cool. I would not book this guy. I would wait for them to hopefully buff him. The Nutcracker. The Nutcracker. Geogid the Breaker. Oh my god, dude. I want this champion so badly. Definitely worth booking. One of the best nukers in the game, guys. Hard-hitting A1, hard-hitting A2, hard-hitting A3. Extra turn if you kill an enemy, which you almost always do. And this is what you need to know. Crack any shell. 50% chance for this champion to ignore 50% of the target's defense from each hit place by this champion's skills. He's an ignore defense machine. Decreased turn meter as well, cannot be resisted. Just one of the best defensive nukers, or excuse me, best arena nukers, sorry, his attack nuker in the game. Boy, do I wish I had him. Congratulations to any of you guys who do. Again, worth booking. Trunda, worth booking. Still up there in the conversation with Leo and Hefrak and Nutcracker for being one of the best arena nukers in the game. Very hard-hitting, potential 2-hitter here or stun on Forge Rhythm. Also very good, basically almost anywhere in the game if you need a nuker. She has a lot of HP. Should be illegal to have 23k HP when you're one of the hardest hitting nukers in the game. She has this great Cloak of Ages, another strong AoE attack, and a strong AoE, a strong 2-time hitter rather, on the A1. Trunda is still Trunda. She never misses leg day, and she's a boss. Next up is going to be Underpriest Brogni. Definitely worth booking Underpriest and Trunda. Underpriest has this ability to grow shield, increase the value of shields, and then he has a shield in his kit along with block debuffs, along with increased attack. Really good ability on 3-turn cooldown, brings an HP burn on the A1 for a little bit extra damage. And speaking of extra damage, look at this passive, guys. Whenever an ally under shield buff is attacked, reflex 25% of that damage inflicted on the shield back to the attacker. It's not a ton of damage, not like a Geomancer damage, but it's significant. It's significant, and he's just a really, really, really good champion. Incredibly good kit. He's on like he's on the world record clan boss teams in the game. Responsible for the Infinity Shield team. You can YouTube search it. Best clan boss team in the world. Just incredible stuff. Herndig. I don't have a few of these dwarves. I don't have Herndig, Samar, Kriela, and Acrizia. Herndig, very good champion. He was a fusion. I regret not going for him. We have a fully deplete target's turn meter. Also attack all enemies if the attack is critical. AoE has a chance to place it in the weaken. We'll also play HP burn if the attack on enemies whose turn meter are below 30%. A mouthful there on stasis strike, but it's a lot of damage and it's a really good ability. Also has an AoE decreased defense and decreased accuracy on a 3-turn cooldown. So not only is it a nuker, not only with a turn meter, but also a debuffer. Definitely worth booking him as well. Godfrey Brassclad, a decent go second arena option. He has an AoE stun as well on a 3-turn cooldown, 100% land rate, which is really nice to have. Again, I keep saying I'm not a fan of AoE stuns, but this is a defense-based AoE stun that's 100% on a 3-turn, which is, unique to the other AoE stuns we've talked about. On his A3, we get an increased defense on all allies, then removes decreased defense and weaken from all allies. Not the strongest ability in the world, but not bad, especially in the arena, again, on a go second team. And then this passive is really cool. Whenever an ally is attacked under a block damage buff, you might be saying block damage, that's coming in a moment. We have a 75%, 100% chance of placing a stun debuff on the attacker on the passive. It is on a 4-turn cooldown though. Active effect. If an ally is about to get killed by a fatal hit, blocks incoming damage and places a block damage buff on them for 1 turn. The active is on a 4-turn. Passive is just there. Really, really, really cool, right? I would say he's worth booking, but his kit is a little niche, He's good for control in Doom Tower. He's not going to die against those higher floor levels in Doom Tower. And he's good for the arena, but, not every player is going to necessarily take a ton of use from a champion like that. Mountain King is a really hard-hitting Force Affinity single-target nuker. He's at most HP in the game, 31k. So you can put him in a bolster set, a protected shield for 3 turns. Going to be very, very strong on the go second team. And he's very tanky, obviously. He also has this Fabled Skill passive that increases his attack and it resets each round for each enemy killed. So he can be, the longer a battle goes on, he can be more and more formidable inside the arena on a go second team. He's very slow at 85 base speed. I'm not a massive Mountain King fan. But he's not a trash champion, I probably wouldn't book him and I probably wouldn't use him. But again, I think my opinion is probably in the minority, but I want to be truthful with you guys as well. Beauregard the Elder, we mentioned him like an hour and a half ago. We talked about Rath Matab. By the way, I just want to take a moment out and have a sip of water and tell you guys, if any of you guys are still watching right now, massive props to you. Like seriously, one-on-one, YouTube aside, thanks for the dedication of watching a 2.5-hour video, man. Like that is some serious dedication. I appreciate you. Seriously, thank you. And then I gotta watch my Celtics in about 40 minutes from now. So let's pick it up. Pick up the pace, Ash. We get a shield here. We get a random debuff removal on the A2. So I think this is a really good support ability on the 3-turn cooldown. And then again, increased resistance and increased speed. Arguably a better champion than Rath Matab, the only other champion that has the big version of increased defense at the time, or increased resistance at the time of this recording. But again, it depends on if you're going to use this dude. He's specifically good against like Bommel to resist some of those bombs. But, after that, I don't know. I think he's pretty niche, So if you really need this kit, go for it. Not a mandatory book, right? Granjar, trash champion. He's got an AoE HP burn, but it takes you 2 years to unlock this dude. I unlocked him. He's the worst, man. He's in contention of being the worst champion in the game because, first of all, he looks really cool, though. I mean, he looks like he should be good, right? He has this thing where he can, like, heal himself, or when they put a freeze, he's putting HP burn, instantly removes it, and places it on the attacker. Like, on a 3-turn cooldown, though, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, look at this kit, dude. It's not a good kit considering it takes you 2 years to get him, man. Nari, so definitely not bookable, not a good champion. He's a buff. Nari the Lucky, really cool champion, has good multipliers for a defense-based champion, and he has 2 AoE attacks. One attack on the A3 has a provoke and a counter attack, which leads him into stealing more buffs on his A1, and his other ability has a decreased accuracy and decreased resistance on a 3-turn cooldown. Very powerful, and 2 very hard to come by debuffs, maybe a little bit less so with decreased accuracy, but certainly decreased resistance, right? And then he has, at the start of this champion's turn, transfers a random buff from a random enemy to a random ally. A little bit of a niche champion, fun for Hydra, does some damage, fun champion. I wouldn't say a mandatory book, but definitely a champion you can get some value out of. Molly Tankard, one of my personal faves. She got the chance at a 2-turn provoke, a 50-50 shot on her A2, so really known for a 2-turn provoke. She also has reflect damage on that same ability. She has Revival in her kit. Not the strongest Revival in the game, but it's not too bad either on a 4-turn cooldown. But what she's really known for on top of all of that is this Rowdy Crowd. Very, very good passive. Fills the turn meter of all allies by 15% when she's hit. Fills the turn meter of all allies by 25% when she's hit by a boss. This is on a 1-turn cooldown. It's a very, very good turn meter fill for the arena and really anywhere else, especially against bosses too, man. Makes her a really incredible champion. I'm a big, big fan of Molly Tankard. Samar Gem Cursed, he's kind of a niche champion. You can kind of solo Bommel in some earlier difficulties. He's got a decent AoE attack, but an HP-based champion. He is his multipliers aren't that good, right? Not a lot of damage here, especially on a 4-turn cooldown when booked. I would not book Samar Gem Cursed. He looks cool though, but I wouldn't book him. I would stay away. Kira, the Watcher. Kind of a newish champion. She's not bad. She has a decreased attack on her A1. She has an AoE on her A2 on a 3-turn cooldown, defense-based champion with a healthy amount of defense, 1400, right? She has decreased accuracy on that A2 ability. Then she has an ally protect and an increased defense on all allies. So this is very, very reminiscent, aka the same as Tyron Ixlamore's A3 ability. So a very, very good ally protector. And then whenever an ally is attacked under an ally protection buff, we get decreased attack on the attacker for 1 one turn. Nice damage mitigation. If you could use an ally protector, again, who has a pretty solid kit with decreased accuracy on AoE, I think she's a good champion to invest in and to book. Torment the Cold, man, I mean, he's worth booking. This passive is insane. He's freezing everybody in the arena. He's got an AoE on his A1. He can deal some sneaky damage. He's got a remove buff from a target enemy, then attacks them, steals them if they're under freeze on a 3-turn cooldown. Another AoE with block buffs, heal reduction if they're under freeze. He's got a provoke if they're not under freeze on the A3 ability at a 80% clip. He is still a really, really good arena champion, and he's actually underrated in other areas, especially in the early and the mid game outside of the arena. Definitely worth investing in and worth booking. Acresia, dude, she's like my most wanted champion in the game, bar none. She is the queen of damage, dude. If you have anybody in your clan, or if you're lucky enough to have your hands on her, you know what I'm talking about. Like, is that one person in your clan that always puts out like 180 million damage against Hydra? It's because they have Acresia. She has an enemy max HP ability on every single skill. Every single skill. Including a strong AoE on the A2 on a 3-turn cooldown. I mean, are you kidding me? I don't even want to talk. I don't even want to look at her anymore. She's definitely worth booking. She's the strongest PvE nuker inside the entire game. Bar none, not even close. Very, very good. Jintoro. Jintoro's a really, really, really good damage dealer for regular clan boss, right? A little bit niche, right? But he can put up more damage than Dracomorph against Demon Lord clan boss, right? He's very, very good, and he's bringing decreased defense and weaken, albeit on one target, but that's all you need. And he's attacking 5 times instead of 1. This is what puts him over the edge on a champion like Draco. For clan boss only, Draco is better overall, right? And I want to be very clear about that. But just a lot of damage in these longer attacks against a single target, which again does make him kind of niche for clan boss. Decent against bosses as a debuffer, but he has this all turn meter effects are increased by 50% when used on this champion as well, turn meter fill effects. So kind of a cool passive as well to have. So he's not the best champion in the world, but he's certainly not the worst. And what he does really, really well. So cool champion, worth booking for clan boss. Lady Kimmy, one of the best champions in the game for my money. She's one of the fastest champions in the game, great base stats, 100% worth booking. She's like a mandatory book, man. She's like that good. An AoE attack here with decreased accuracy, decreased speed, and decreased turn meter on the A2. Very good ability. And then she'd bring in increased accuracy, increased speed, and removing buffs and placing block buffs on enemies on her A3 ability. What? Whenever this champion places a debuff on an enemy, also decreases the enemy's turn meter by 5% for each debuff placed. Whenever this champion or ally receives a debuff, fills their turn meter for each debuff received. Very good passive as well. She just makes everything work better. She's a very, very, very good champion. Ninja, no one can pull him now, so if you have him, congratulations. He's worth booking. He's an amazing champion. He's got the AoE freeze. He's got the hail burn. We talked about this way earlier in the video. We talked about Chronum. Just insanely good damage. One of the best damage dealers in the game. Decreased defense on his A1. I'm sure Tyler Blevins is not going to watch this video, nor does he even recognize, but he is one of the best champions in the game. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Also have Escalation doing more damage over time. Michinaki, man, definitely worth booking. Very good champion. He's up there as one of my sneaky best champions of 2022. An AoE decreased defense, decreased attack on enemies under Hex. Either way, decreased defense on an AoE from a defense-based champion, chance at decreased attack. On his A3, he's bringing Hex there too, right? On a 3-turn cooldown, attacks all enemies 2 times. First hit removes all buffs from the target. Second hit places a Hex for 2 turns, right? HP burn on his A1, by the way. Whenever an ally attacks an enemy under a Hex, this champion has a 50% chance to team up and join the ally's attack. That is great because his A1 actually hits pretty hard, and you're placing 60% HP burn as well. Make sure you get Sniper to up that to 65%. He can deal so much damage against Hydra Clan Boss specifically. Very cool champion. I was very impressed with him. I think he's worth booking. Harmina. I don't have Harmina, but she has a very, very unique passive. Enemy ignore defense effects are decreased by 50%. What? That's a very unique and incredibly strong passive. She has an AoE with the Provoke on the A3. She has a 3-time hitter with each hit decreases the target's defense by 5%. Stacks up to 100 on increase this champion's defense on this A2 ability. Very good champion. I don't have her, but I would book her if I did. Yoshi the Drunkard. I'm a massive fan of Yoshi. He's the best bomb setup champion for the arena or anywhere in the game because he's bringing increased attack and increased accuracy. He's also placing True Fear, 100% True Fear land rate on enemies with increased attack buffs. So going against like an Arbiter team, he's just going to True Fear everybody. They'll have a 50-50 shot at losing their turn and putting their skills on cooldown, man. Very, very good champion. Excuse me, has a two-turn cooldown with a decreased accuracy and HP burn on his A2. I think he's underrated. I think he's worth booking for nothing, if not a bomb setup champion, if you're interested in building a bomb team. If not, might want to just hold on to him. Noble, actually, he was like the worst champion, worst legendary in the game for a long time. They actually gave him a pretty significant buff. He's still not that good, though. His best usage is to empower Ninja. He's in Ninja's Empower champion. He has on his A2, this is a 2-turn cooldown. Attacks one enemy, will ignore 30% of the target's defense, fills his champion's turn meter by 25% after the attack. On his AoE on the A3, 100% chance of decreasing each target's turn meter by 50%. If there are any enemies under Fear or True Fear, will also fill his champion's turn meter by the amount those enemies lose. Whenever an enemy's turn meter is fully depleted by any champion, has a 100% chance of placing a True Fear on that enemy for 1 turn. I have to be real with you guys. I'm just going to be totally honest about this guy. I have not read his kit since the day that he was buffed. And I remember when he was buffed thinking, you know what? That's actually not bad now. His kit's not that bad. He still has awful ratings, but this is why you have to be careful of ratings in game. This ability is not a bad ability. We talked about this with like Bat Swarm on Nethril. If we're going to call that ability a good ability on a 4-turn cooldown with 75% turn meter depletion, now we have an AoE with 100% on a 50% turn meter depletion. It's not an amazing kit, don't get me wrong. And I would not probably book him. But I don't think he's as trashy as I remember, right? And that passive is not that bad either. So don't book, but not that bad, I guess. Not as bad as I thought. Genzen. Man, Genzen's a very, very good champion, a very good debuffer, decreased defense, each critical hit fills his champion's turn meter by 10%, and then we have a Nor Unkillable and Shield, filling his turn meter even more. Very, very good debuffer. One of my favorites out there for debuffers in the game. This guy really grew on me. Another YouTuber, YST, really turned me on to Genzen, man. He's like, dude, you're sleeping on this dude. He's a boss. And now I think he is a boss. Triple hitter as well as A1. If you need a Spirit Affinity debuffer who does some damage with like an Energizer Bunny effect, just keeps going and going and going, look no further. Kyoku, an amazing tank, guys. She has a weaken on the A1. She has an AoE decrease attack on the A2 on a 4-turn cooldown. I wish that was 3. But then this ability, Kyoku's Horde. Ally Protect, block damage buff on this champion for 3 turns and grants an extra turn. So, you know, we talked about this when we talked about Vizix, right? She's taking a lot of damage with the Ally Protect. But we have block damage for 3 turns on a 4-turn cooldown. We don't have to worry about any damage unless it gets removed. Then we get the extra turn to come into another AoE or another A1 placing more weakens. We'll place 3 hits if the target is under 3 or more debuffs. She's got a really strong kit. Every time this champion is hit with a critical hit, heals all allies by 15% of their max HP and places, an increased defense on all allies for 2 turns. Very good arena go second opener. Increased defense basically immediately as somebody's attacked, right? Overall, just an incredible tank in the game. Definitely worth booking. Defense in all battles as well. Gameran, not a fan. I try to talk myself into being a big fan of this dude, and I'm not, guys. An AoE chance of stealing a buff, whatever, on the A2. On the A3, you can target dead or living enemies. On dead, you can place Block Revive. On Alive, you can place True Fear, and you can, like, there's a lot of stuff that you can read the whole thing. I'm not going to read it. We're already 2.5 hours into this video, but it just, it looks in theory like it might be pretty decent, and then in practice, it's not that great. I tried to make it work. I would not book this champion unless he has some kind of a niche, weird use case in the future. Corrado Foxhunter was a previous fusion. He's a companion champion to Yameka. We'll talk about in just a moment, and let me tell you guys, I am a massive fan of this champion. He hits really, really hard. A stun for 2 turns, a great neutralizer on a 3-turn cooldown, and he has an AoE hard-hitting attack here on a 4-turn cooldown with block active skills. That's a really good arena ability. I'll tell you what, man, some people like kind of crap on this champion. I don't know why, but like people don't like him. I mean, look at his reviews. Not good at all, ratings. But I'm telling you, dude, Karada Fox Hunter is a really nice nuker, especially for the arena, especially if you have Yumeko, but I think he's a really good champion. I think he's very underrated. Rio Bone Spear. So I think if you need an arena nuker, or if you're lucky enough to have Yumeko as well, I think he's worth booking. But I do think he's kind of limited to just the arena, especially as we approach the end game, right? Rio Bone Spear is amazing. She has all these debuffs on a single target on a 3-turn cooldown. That's amazing, specifically for Sand Devil. And then we have a cleanse, we have block debuffs, and we have a great heal on a 3-turn cooldown on Perfect Body. It's really one of the strongest abilities out there. It's very, very good. An incredible support champion. When receiving any debuffs, instantly transfers them from this champion to the attacker on a 3-turn cooldown. Will not transfer debuffs that cannot be removed. Very, very, very good champion. No-brainer to book her out. Jingguan, they gave him a buff and he's still not that good, guys. I hate to say it. He has a 2-time hitter with decreased accuracy, decreased crit damage, strengthen on himself. It's not a very compelling ability on a 4-turn cooldown, frankly, guys. He's an HP-based champion that doesn't have good multipliers. Unchained should be the feature, the highlight of his kit, and it's very good. This champion is immune to all these debuffs, and at the end of each turn, each enemy or ally turn removes all fear, true fear, freeze, provoke, sleep, stun, petrification debuffs, and places a block debuff on allies who have debuffs removed. Excuse me, but it's on a 4-turn cooldown. You know, it happens one time on after one enemy turn. Everything will get cleansed, and it will go on 4 turns cooldown. You know. It's just not worth it. I would not book him. I would not use him personally. Yumeko, a beast of a champion, one of the best in the game. She's known for Dance of Time. Decrease the duration of all ally skills by 3 turns. Increase the duration of all cooldown of all enemy skills. So it's kind of like some Warlord mixed with some Prince Kaimar. Very, very good. And 3 turns is generally enough to neutralize and or, boost any of the enemies and allies respectively. She also has this Destiny's Mirror, where she has a chance of throwing back debuffs on enemies under Hex. She has Hex on the same ability, so it works out very well, especially against Bommel. She'll deflect those bombs right back at him, right? She has Turn Meter Steel on the A1 as well. Tremendous, tremendous champion. Ginro the Stork, dude. Another trash champion from Doom Tower Hard. He is probably the worst legendary in the game. He's definitely in contention. Increased defense on this champion and counterattack on a 4-turn cooldown. Cool. Attacks 1 enemy, places a stun for 2 turns. Awesome. All right, that's it. Definitely don't invest. Sylvan Watchers. Elva, very good champion. Continuous heal for 2 turns to with lowest HP. We have a chance a cleanse, 100% when booked. 3-turn cooldown, block debuffs, and increased speed. Very, very good ability. A full cleanse with block debuffs for 2 turns and increased speed. That's really good. And then we have a revive on a target ally. Decent revival here. Increased defense, increased attack as well on a 3-turn cooldown, which is really, really nice for a single target revive. And then heals each ally by 10% of their max HP at the start of their turn with a perfect veil for 1 turn on an ally with lowest HP at the end of this champion's turn. So it's kind of got a little bit of the Sill of the Drace, the Siphi passive there with those constant heals on top of that. Good base stats, speed in all battles, definitely worth booking. King Galkabar, definitely worth booking. This guy's a monster. A good survivability, good speed, has a shield on the ally with lowest HP on the A1. On the A2, attacks all enemies. We have a 100% chance of removing all buffs from all enemies. Plays a poison debuff for 2 turns on each enemy for every buff removed from them. Also has a 100% chance of placing block buffs on each enemy for 1 turn. This is a nasty ability on a 3-turn cooldown for Hydra Clan Boss specifically. Very strong and unique ability in this game. And then we have a full cleanse on a 3-turn cooldown. Continuous heal for 1 turn on each ally for every debuff removed from them. Also places a shield on them equal to 25% of this champion's max HP. Whenever an enemy under a poison debuff attacks an ally under a shield, instantly activates one poison debuff on that enemy. Also instantly activates one continuous heal on the attacked ally. Cool passive as well. Very, very good champion. Green Warden Rurak. First of all, he looks pretty cool. He's got the face, then he's got the other face, and then any other faces here? A face over there. He looks cool, but he's not that compelling. He's the least powerful of the Slyvan Watchers at the time of this recording. I'm sure by the end of this year, 2023, we'll have quite a bit more legendaries. We have an AoE decrease attack, also stealing continuous heal buffs on enemies. Can't be resisted. I don't know. Kind of niche there, right? Places a taunt buff, increased defense buff, and a strengthened buff on this champion on a 4-turn cooldown. Yeah. Taunt is kind of a cool buff. There's only a couple champions that have it at this point. It's cool to have like that provoke element as a buff, right? I would love to see, and maybe this would make him too strong, like make him go from being like kind of underwhelming to overwhelming. I would love to see that be a protected buff that can't be removed, the taunt, right? That would be pretty cool. Whenever an ally loses 10% or more than max HP from a single hit, places a shield buff on that ally for 2 turns equal to 10% of their max HP. Overall, I would not, if I pulled him, I would not book him, I don't think. I mean, even if the increased defense was on all allies or was a 3-turn cooldown, I don't know. He's just not enough for me. Not trash, especially with that taunt in there. But I really love if this was a 1 cooldown, 1 turn less. How do you guys feel about this dude? I don't have him. He's the only one I don't have, as you can see here. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt. Aleel. Aleel is an underwhelming AF, this dude, man. He's ignoring Stone Skin, increased defense, ally protect, really cool, whatever. He's removing increased defense, placing decreased defense, removing strengthen, placing weaken. I mean, on paper, he looks like he should be an absolute beast. Just doesn't deal that much damage. For a 1630 base attack, it's pretty crazy. I've been hating on this guy quite a bit lately, and I know some people in the comments have been like, nah, dude, he's not that bad. And, you know, I think it's a game of expectations, right? You see that base number, you look at his multipliers, kind of underwhelming, and then you see that he's like, can take out somebody with Stone Skin, but he can't even really kill them because it's not, multipliers aren't high enough. So for me, he's a frustrating champion. You know, I hope he gets a buff, but that's kind of how I feel about him. It looks like most people kind of feel the same way overall. But guys, there it is. 2 hours and 40 minutes or so. We did it. Every legendary reviewed. Hey, again, massive shout out to anybody who watched this entire video. I don't care if it took you 1 or 2 or 10 sittings. I love you guys. I appreciate you. Send us some positive vibes. I'm going to go try to, I don't know, recoup my voice here. Jeez. Thank you. And as always, take care, guys.